When we need to prepare for a competitive event, our go-to company is the Army Painter.
Thanks to their complete range of paints, spray cans, and gaming tools, we're able to complete our new armies and units in no time.
When we need to elevate the quality of our models and terrain, the Army Painter is always our first choice.
You may not know this, but the Army Painter has sponsored more competitive events than any other hobby company.
Tournament and wargaming is in their DNA.
Visit thearmypainter.com to learn more about their amazing products.
And use promo code AOW Paints for a 5% discount from your Army Painter purchases.
What are you waiting for? Discover the best way to prepare your models for events with the Army Painter today.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another super exciting day in the wonderful world of Warhammer. Why is today so super duper exciting, you may ask? Well, let me tell you. Because we've got new rules. We've got a new balance state. We got new missions. We've got new points. We've got a new game of Warhammer 40,000, folks, and we are here to tell you all about it.
It is massively hyped because this is one of the biggest updates to Warhammer 40k that has ever existed. There is stuff literally all over the place, and so much so that we're going to be doing two separate videos. This one is going to focus on the Dataslate and the MFM, and then starting in probably about 2 hours, Mr. John and Jack will go through the Tournament Companion, all the rules changes. So you are going to be doing 40k nonstop, and then after that, we're going to have a live game pitting the brand new Nerf sisters, thank the Lord, up against my Tau. So really hype YouTube game, and you can check all those out. We got all the events that are coming up. They are on our YouTube channel, so click that notification button.
That's right, folks. We've got this video going over the balanced data slate in the Minotaur Field Manual. We got another video going out about all the core rules changes to the game and all the big changes there. And then, not only that, but Mr. Siegs and I are going to play the brand new spanking, totally not as broken sisters versus the not as new but still very new Tau Empire. Later today on our YouTube channel, tentatively 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So don't go anywhere. Click that subscribe button, smash the like button, leave a comment on this video letting us know what you think, and that way you'll get notified about all of our upcoming content today, tomorrow, and for the rest of time.
But that's not all, Mr. Nick. If you want to actually see a State of the Faction video on both AdMech and Tyranids, and in addition to that, want to see the new AdMech in action against the Champions of Rust, which was buffed, well, head over to the warroom.vhx.tv. There's a 3-day free trial, but there's also a 50% off your first month using AOW Nexus, all caps.
What? 50% off your first month of the War Room? You can't get better than that, folks. AOW Nexus, just to repeat the discount code. Go to the, check it out. That's where we do all of our premium content. You get access to our amazing Discord server with all of the professional War Room players we have here. An amazing community that's focused on helping you learn the game and become your best. And a slew of videos on all kinds of different faction things, all kinds of different strategy and tactical things, and every single faction in the game is going to get a new meta, new breakdown video in the War Room over the coming weeks.
Yep, yes indeed, and that's not all. There'll be every single thing that could be analyzed is going to be analyzed, and we're going to help you get adjusted to the new meta.
All right, Siegs, are you ready to do this?
I am ready. So let's head over to the balanced data slate here and start with some of these big core
rules. You see how much
rules.
red that is? That's all red. Red means different.
Red means different, and there's a lot of different.
Okay, let's summarize these up for us. What are these changes here?
All right, so first of all, the modifying a CP, modifying stratagem cost, has changed. It used to be that you could only modify the cost of battle tactics, which was a very band-aid fix to some of the early issues of the edition. That has now gone away. There's nothing here about battle tactics whatsoever, and also you don't make stratagem 0 CP. Instead, you simply reduce the CP cost by 1. So if it's a 2 CP strat, it goes to 1. If it's a 1 CP strat, it goes to 0. However, you can no longer double up any strats. It has to specify the stratagem. So they give a couple examples of those abilities that specify certain strats which can be doubled, but otherwise you will not be doubling stratagems anymore. So, you know, no free strats, you reduce them, but not doubling. So this is overall a net nerf to those type of abilities, but you're still going to see it all over the place because having a basically not having to spend a CP or an extra CP on a strat is very powerful. In addition, Vect has changed, which is the colloquial term for increasing the cost of stratagems. That is now on every unit that has it, like a Fate Weaver. That's going to be if you're within 12 inches of the model that has it and try and use a stratagem, plus 1 CP cost. So very powerful against aggressive armies, armies that need to use stratagems while their models are close to yours. Very strong.
So a lot of different changes here. Just to summarize it up, basically, you can no longer make straight strats free. You just reduce the cost by 1. You cannot use a strat a second time full stop. So if you're a Space Marine captain, something like that is the example they gave, has the ability to make a strat free and use it a second time, just delete that second line. It can only make a strat reduced by 1. Unless, of course, it is specifically called out the name of the strat. So an example of that would be like Fleshhounds can do heroic intervention specifically for free, even if a unit has already done it. So Fleshhounds can still heroic, but Space Marine captains cannot double spam Armor of Contempt and things like that. I like this change a lot. I especially like the moving away from battle tactics as a designator. I just feel that was very, what the hell are we doing here?
It's not ideal.
I really like the way this flows now. And I think the new Vect, as you mentioned, being a 12-inch aura of all strats costs 1 more, is actually a lot better than the old Vect.
It's very interesting because just having like a Calidus assassin hang out in your backfield and target any of your key strats, that's dead. However, I need to use heroic plays, or I have a lethal and lance ability, or I'm trying to get +1 AP, or use Armor of Contempt in this fight. Well, I'm within 12, and I don't have CP for all the things I want to do now.
It's very anti, like, short-range defense and offense. So, like, if your opponent is coming into you and they're like, I want to do full reroll hits and reroll wounds with my Chosen, and you're like, actually, it costs 2. That's a big deal. Or if you're the aggressive army, like you're playing your World Eaters and you're like, man, I really want to get around this interrupt, and you can make interrupts cost 3, or now, spoiler alert, heroic interventions cost 1, make them cost 2 again, that can really mess up your opponent.
Even a CP reroll on a charge play that you really need to make, and you're like, oh, Lord.
Yeah.
I can't use my offensive buff because I'm spending all my CP on this reroll.
So I definitely think if you have like a model like Bjorn, the fell-handed, the Spaceful Dreadnought guy, he's really durable. Walk him in the middle of the table, just be like, no strats in the middle of the board for you. That can be super powerful.
He's in the game in the worm right now, and he is very annoying. Let me tell you,
So
very annoying.
Experience. Yeah, whereas something like a Calidus who wants to hang out in the back and use her Reign of Confusion era from afar, that's not really that useful anymore. So I think her stock has gone down, but the general ability stock has gone up.
Yeah, exactly. How you use them is different, which is cool. And I'm sure you'll be using Mr. Fate Weaver.
Oh, he's coming in, no matter what.
All right, well then we have stratagems that prevent units from being targeted. This is the Lone Op stratagems. A variety of factions had access to it, most notably the Canoptic Court Necrons. Any such stratagems are now 18 inches instead of 12, which is a massive change. You saw in January, this was specifically done to Chaos Space Marines with their 12-inch Nurgle strat. And after that, Chaos Space Marines were not the same. Let me tell you. Yeah. Obviously, they received a bunch of other nerfs, but this was a big change. And this is going to be huge for Skitarii Hunter cohort, the Canoptic Court, the Kroot Hunting Pack. There's a variety of armies that relied on this strat for power, and it's nowhere near as powerful anymore.
That's right. I mean, this is just, I think, bringing the strat identity in line with the new modern version across the game and unifying it. Says I really hate when there's like, see, it's have 18-inch lone op, but these guys have 12-inch lone op. That's just annoying and stupid. I'm glad they're picking the more conservative version of the rule, and I'm glad they're being game-wide application about it. I'm happy with this change.
It gives further power to having actual lone ops, which maintain having a 12-inch lone op ability. It's only the stratagems.
That's right.
All right, and then finally, stratagems that add new units to your army, guard players in shambles, Tyranid Endless Swarm players in shambles. You can only use them once. So if you want to revive your Casterkin unit throughout the whole game, guess what? No, you're not doing it.
Good, screw them.
Comboed with the changes to free strats, this is a very different world.
I don't know if this was necessary for the power level of the armies that were resurrecting the units to like be nerfed in line with the rest of the game. I think like Guard were a pretty decent faction, nothing too crazy, but I don't love the idea of some armies getting like 2,400 points versus 2,000, so I'm glad this is just the way it is.
Yeah, see, that's the GSC player in you right there.
I don't get the 5-ups. What are you talking about? I can't even place my blips. There's a whole war room report about that.
So this is a pretty big change for several. It's Guard, Endless Swarm Tyranids, the Kroot Hunting Pack. There's a couple factions that really relied on reviving things, and this is a big change to that.
Just as a reminder, folks, for anybody in the chat, please feel free to send us a super chat if you have any specific questions or just want to send some love our way. It really helps us keep on growing the channel, and we will answer your question specifically with that super chat.
This is posted on the Warhammer community. All right, just go over to warhammercommunity.com and go to the 40K downloads. All right, faction rules. So Adeptus Sororitas, nothing.
They got a new codex. Trust me, there's plenty of stuff.
Plenty of stuff. Now, for the Adeptus Custodes, they get a couple changes here to 2 different detachments. The Shield Host detachment, which is the one where you can get crit 5s. Now you have a bit more flexibility. So at the start of the battle round, you can select one of the bullet points below, and until the next battle round, the bullet point continues applying. So really what this means is for Shield Host, and we actually are going to have a game with Shield Host very soon, releasing in the Worm, that you can be in crit 5s with sustained pretty much whenever you want.
Yeah.
Which
Crit
those units hit.
Crit 5s is like a different type of critical hit, because it's also sometimes you, like if your crit 6s, like Matt says, you should get 1/6 extra hits. Sometimes you just don't roll 6s. It's a lot harder not to roll 5s or 6s, and like you just get a lot more consistency in addition to better math.
Yeah, the spike factor gets insane.
Yeah.
And then the Auric Champions detachment, instead of restricted to like character models, it is a model in an Adeptus Custodes character unit gets the buff.
That's a great change, because the character detachment was all about buffing the character models, and that's cool, but the character models want to be buffing units, and the units don't get anything from that detachment. Now they do.
Now they do. They don't get all the other rules, like a lot of strats are still restricted to characters, but this is character unit and any model in that unit. So your wardens, whatever you're putting in your different units will benefit, which is quite a nice upgrade. So looks like they understand Custodes was on the weaker side of codexes, and at least buffed some of their detachments to make them way more interesting. And
depending on who you ask, the Custodes were the worst army in the game. Specifically, only if you ask the Custodes players. But I think they will be happy about this.
That was just not true. It's just not true. But they are going to be much happier because they have a bit more diversity too. I think both these detachments have play.
Some other people who are much happier is us right now, because Christian L., who's been a member for 2 years and counting, 26 months, has just sent us some super chat. Morning, boys. So excited to see how much Games Workshop secretly hates Marines. Thankfully, World Leaders are unchanged. They actually got some buffs. There's actually a lot of love all over the board for this stuff, so we shall see what the new meta looks like.
They got some points decreases, especially on some good units that you see all the time. So thanks so much for being with us for a long time. Really appreciate your support, and we will definitely go through all the factions here.
Including Red Rum's £2 super chat. Admech, get it, Siegs. Judgment Day is upon us. Speak of the devil, we're
Here
on
it is.
Admech. Thanks so much for your super chat, Red Rum.
Flesh is weak, Nick. All right, here we go. So the Adeptus Mechanicus, they've been promising this for months. Basically, every time a Warcom community article came out, they were like, Admech will be getting some buffs, and they finally did get the buffs. And these are big ones. This is basically rewriting the identity of the faction, which was a faction that barely did any sort of damage. They've increased a variety of profiles, and the army rule is significantly more powerful to help buff up some of the data sheets that are lagging behind other factions. So the army rule changes. So Protector is going to get +1 ballistic skill in addition to heavy. So if you happen to get into a prolonged firefight and are just out in the open and survive, you can get +1 ballistic skill, then heavy. That won't come up.
+2 to hit.
Won't come up all the time, but the +1 ballistic skill obviously massive for the shooting units. And then each time a melee attack targets the unit, if it's within 6 of battle line or battle line, -1 to hit in melee. So not quite as powerful as the Armor of Contempt that existed before, but it was only in your deployment zone. If that was army-wide, it would just be broken. So makes a lot of sense that it was changed to a different type of defensive ability. And -1 to hit is very good. There's not every melee unit has powerful rerolls, and a lot of them are just going in, banking on volume of attacks, hitting on 3s, coming in with hitting on 4s. Not ideal. And Admech have some pretty durable units. So I think overall this is a huge change. +1 ballistic skill is just massive. Then Conqueror is +1 weapon skill in addition to Assault. And now the +1 AP is a 6-inch aura off battle line. So it's in your control. It doesn't matter about your opponent's deployment zone. And this is another huge deal. Now with both of these getting way better, any of the Stratton Cybernetica, the Cantic Thrallnet and Hunter cohort, any ability that lets you get both of these at the same time is now ludicrously powerful. Previously, it was almost useless, both those abilities. Now, both of them are really, really good. So this is a huge upgrade.
I thought Admech Army Rule didn't do anything. What do you mean it does stuff now?
It does stuff now. It didn't do very much before. You would just sit and conquer for Assault, but with Assault getting a bit less powerful in Pariah Nexus, this is a huge update to being able to do damage to your opponent. And Breachers sitting there with +1 AP, very, very strong. I showed that off in the game against Jack Space Wolves in the Worm.
That's right. So if you want to catch the brand new spanking Admech right now, you can do that in the Worm, along with a new mission set, a new tournament companion layout, all kinds of new stuff.
Everything
there.
new.
Yeah. And we've got another game coming. So very exciting stuff, folks.
All right. So
we got here.
The bunch of models, units didn't have access to the army rule. Most of them do now. The only things that don't are the Cybernetica Datasmith and the robots, and that's because their detachment gives them the rule, which is way better now. So everything else gets it. So Belisarius Call, all the different tech priests, as well as Corpuscari and Fulgurite Electro Priest. So massive upgrade there, and just very exciting to be able to use a lot of these units in more effective ways when previously they kind of just struggled compared to the Skritari units. Then Belisarius Call, he is going to move 8 inches, and in the FAQs, he's able to move through walls with Imperium Primarchs. So he's a bit faster, a bit more useful. And then his aura ability, the middle one of the 3, allows him to gain the battle line keyword alongside his Battle Shock leadership aura. You're giving up the reroll ones to hit, so I'm not sure if this is going to come up too many times, but late game, or if you run a vehicle spam army and try and cut Skitari, which is the battle line, then you might see some use on that. Okay, here's the bigger upgrades. Iron Striders. Iron Striders, instead of being twin-linked, now get double the number of shots, which helps with their sustained 1 rule. Having more shots up front, they're less consistent on the wound rolls, but still strength 12 is very good. I think this hurts I think the autocannon is basically not really relevant anymore since it lost twin-linked, but the last cannon is much, much better. And with BS3 and having 6 shots for a unit of 3, you got some pretty decent consistency there. Faramite Cannon gains +1 damage, so it's D6 +1 instead of D6, so it's a bit more consistent, stays the same number of shots, and you'll see like the Scorpius tank only goes up like 5 points from where it is now, so you get +1 ballistic skill plus an extra damage on the Faramite Cannon. And with the indirect fire change of only being able to hit on 4s, I think the days of the Belarus Energy Cannon are dead anyway, so Faramite Cannon. Then Sakaran Infiltrators gain +1 attack, which will help their ability to do any amount of damage. They can get +1 weapon skill now, and AP if they're nearby a friendly battle line, so they can do some damage. Ruststalkers gain +1 attack and +1 strength, and once again, they can get the same type of melee buffs. So these units still aren't going to punch up and like destroy small vehicles or anything like that, but they will hurt infantry units now, which is what they should have been able to do, which is a great change. And then the Honor Guard Dunecrawler, I think this is one of the biggest upgrades overall, because they look at all of its weapon profiles. The Daedalus Missile Launcher, which I think is the worst, it gains an extra attack from 1 to 2, alongside its other anti-fly stuff. And then the other weapons, though, Eradication Beamer goes from D6 shots to 2D3 blast, which is way more consistent with its sustained D3. And then the Neutron Laser gains access to D6 +2 and an additional shot, so it's 3 shots. It competes with the Iron Striders, I think, the 2-mans. And then the Twin Auger Heavy Phosphor Blaster, which was the most useless weapon you could possibly run, went from 4 shots to 12 and kept its twin-linked and ignores cover. And I think that's a really great medium profile that AdMech can take a lot of advantage of.
So tons of changes all over the place for AdMech. They're definitely doing a little bit of an identity shift. You'll see with the points changes as well from a total trash army. And I don't mean trash necessarily as bad, but like their units didn't do much and they were very cheap. To now more of a quality style of list, and I think that is good. The trash style is not where you want to be as a faction identity.
Yeah, if their big goals coming in where AdMech has units that can actually do damage to elite infantry and tanks, then they definitely succeeded with this update, which is a huge deal, and I think that's what almost every AdMech player wanted, which was, I have units, and they do a thing that isn't move blocking and holding space on a board. I want to kill something, Nick. Now I can.
Now you can.
Now I can, and specifically you. I'm gonna find you, Nick.
No, you're not. We got a £5 super chat from Dragons of Dragons. Is Cybernetica cohort we're taking now, Seeks?
I don't think it'll be the most competitive detachment because move blocking is still a thing against robots, but it is so much better than it was before that you can run it at a GT and still, have a really good time and win games. And I think that's a great place to be. Their strats are way better now, specifically the one to double up protocols. Very, very good now.
Thanks so much for your support, Dragons of Dragons. Appreciate
Thank you.
All right, so now we've got some more changes. We've got the Eldari. A lot of these changes are holdovers from previous changes.
I think literally all of those changes are.
Yeah, you get like 6 Fate dice. That's been there.
It's all the same.
It's all the same.
Then Agents of the Imperium is same as before, nerfing those exaction squads. Astra Militarum, however, is different. Mm-hmm. So Astra Militarum are one of the armies that, the reinforcement strat is a lot worse, the free stratting is a lot worse, and then on top of that, the indirect fire change to only being able to hit on unmodified 4+. That's a big change. Their indirect fire is not hitting on 2s anymore, which was ridiculous. Instead, they get a big buff to their Born Soldiers detachment rule. which was the lethal hits if you remain stationary, which mostly buffed indirect fire. Now it doesn't. So instead, you have to draw visibility, and depending on if you're a regiment unit or a squadron unit, you get lethal hits against either monsters vehicles or non-monster vehicles. So this is lethal hits being a lot more accessible. Lehman Russes, Rogel Dorns, all going to be really strong in the new meta, especially with the decreases to the Rogel Dorn. And this is a big buff to their reliability of damage. Since Guard don't have too many rerolls, lethal hits helps them wounding tougher targets. By a lot.
It also helps just generally break the stigma with Guard, which is that they sit still to get lethal hits, and you take all this stupid artillery and it never moves, and you're just this boring army that shoots and doesn't move. I love that this allows you to play a more dynamic style of Guard, especially with the nerf to indirect fire, which we'll certainly cover later. This is going to be a good change to try to give that army some more play on the tabletop.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a very, they have two very interesting changes. The last one was from the previous one, and with the points decreases, it'll be interesting to see where Guard goes. John was already experimenting with Lehman Russ heavy builds, and I expect that style to continue being pretty strong. All right, Black Templars. This is a thing that they're doing for Space Marines in general, which is their transport capacities were just a little bit off where you couldn't fit units and characters inside, so they've changed them. The Impulsor is gaining an extra slot, and the Repulsor is gaining 2 extra slots, I assume.
Yeah, so basically something like a lot of the newer units like Blade Guard come in like 3 or 6 mans, and then you want to add a character and it's a 7-man unit, so only an Impulsor previously only held 6 models, which is a little bit of an Akko Taco, but now we hold 7 and everybody's happy again.
Very nice quality of life change, and hopefully they come around and do this for Votan and a couple of the other armies that also have a similar transport unit size issue.
Hopefully they give demons transports.
No. Your transport's the warp, Nick.
Sloppity Bile Typer with a $2 super chat.
Speaking.
Thanks for the breakdown, boys. Stay sloppity. We will. Appreciate your super chat, sloppity.
When are we getting you to play the Sloppity Biopiper? Because John's been playing it in Chaos Knights, and you're letting us down here.
John's not a real Chaos boy. That's not real.
Blood Angels keep their bonus from last time. And then Chaos Knights, and you're going to see this change in Imperial Knights as well, but they can actually move through walls that are more than 4 inches high. They could previously move through ones that were 4 inches or less, but they can move through the higher ones now, as long as they roll a d6, and on a 1, they're battle shocked. So you have a 1 in 6 chance of having a big downside, but you have a lot more flexibility, and there's a lot more spaces on the board your opponent has to move block.
Yeah, being able to move over walls fundamentally changes Chaos Knights. Now, Chaos Knights in general can move through walls for 1 CP with their current detachment.
Knights of Shade.
It's a little bit not as useful on them, but in general, you can use that strat on little dogs while moving a big dog over a wall, or maybe you don't want to use that strat. Imperial Knights will absolutely love this. This is a great quality of life strat for Knights. As the opponent, you're not just screwed. You can still move block them. We teach that in the Worm. Don't you worry. AOW next is 50% off. But also, one thing that I disdain about this rule is it's like, after you move over the ruin, you roll a dice on a 1, you take your battle shots. Why couldn't that just be take a battle shock test? Like, this is a different form of taking a battle shock test. Roll a 2 up is a test of sorts. But I
don't like the roll
like
ones
that.
feels bad aspect of it. At least with a battle shock test,
I think they have a mechanic for
Yeah.
taking a battle shock test. So I don't know why this is a D6 roll with 2+, which is a different function of that mechanic, but whatever. I digress.
Yeah, I think this isn't as huge a deal for Chaos Knights as Imperial Knights, because Big Knights, I still think you're going to see a lot of War Dogs in the old Chaos Knights, especially with the battle line changes on some of the missions. So with that being said, I think Imperial Knights, which run 2 to 3 Big Knights, will benefit from this a bit more.
But don't you worry, if you want to see your Imperial Knights on the channel, we got Brian Jones, our Knight expert, coming in hot to do a household joust with us.
Yeah, he will be playing the Knights, and he'll be playing, I believe, against my Necron soon. So stay tuned for that. Chaos Space Marines.
Oh boy. We got exactly 1 rules change, and it was one that I don't think anyone is surprised by, nor are they saying that it shouldn't be the case. Warp Talons, for them to use their infinite Warp Talon loop of basically going up in reserves after charging or being eligible to fight, now they actually have to kill something, which changes a few things. You can't charge like Warp Talons and Chosen into a target, have the Chosen do the slaughtering, have the Warp Talons do the leaving. You also cannot do things like in Renegade Raiders, where the Warp Talons can charge into something and then use the 1 CP strat to move 12 inches or fall back 12 inches after they're done and then leave the table. You basically can't cheese it anymore. The Warp Talons have to do the dirty work to get the good rule, which I think is good.
Yeah, I think having non-interactive, silly units like that is just not healthy for the game. We saw that in Ninth Edition. I don't know how that knowledge was lost, but the Imperium kind of shows us the way of how that happens. But overall, like this, the Warp Talon's still very good. They're just a bit more difficult to use perfectly.
Yeah, honestly, this change like hardly impacts anything. In most cases, you are still going to just charge a target and leave. It's the very basic line of the Warp Talon, and that is functionally the same. I would say what's hurt them more is like the points nerfs that CSM take, but we'll cover the Minotaur field manual after we go through all the rules changes.
Absolutely. All right. Well, before we dive into Chaos Demons here, we've got Evan Bursick. Thanks so much for the super chat. Thoughts on destroyers now that breachers seem expensive? Destroyers definitely, not going up is a big deal for them because they compete a little bit more with some of the other units. Still skeptical on them because there's no way to give them both sides of the doctrines. If there was, where you could get the +1 AP and the +1 ballistic skill, I would like them a bit more. But even with +1 ballistic skill, you kind of need call around to give them some amount of rerolls. I think breachers are still, even at their expensive price, much more consistent damage. But destroyers are definitely the best that they have been this edition by a significant margin, frankly.
Alasdair C, thank you for your €5 super chat as well. You've got 750 plus people watching the stream and only 20 likes. We need to pump those rookie numbers up, guys. You are absolutely right. Like that video, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. It really allows us to keep producing this content for you, and we absolutely love doing that. We can't do it without your support. So appreciate your super chat, Alasdair. See, and appreciate all 750 plus of you who are watching. Please do like the video, subscribe to the channel. It makes such a world of difference for us.
It really does. Thank you so much for everybody joining us, and I hope you're just excited because this is so many changes, and the meta is going to get wild.
I'm excited about these Chaos Demon Seeks. Put me in, coach.
All right, Chaos Demons.
All right, so we've got some brand new spanking shadows of the warp rules. Basically, your big monsters, Bloodthirster, Great and Clean One, Fate Weaver, Shalaxi, all of your greater demons and their special character counterparts now provide an aura of within 6 inches of that model counts as shadows, specifically for their gods. So basically, Be'lakor is a 6-inch area of shadows around him. For anybody, but like Shalaxi is a 6-inch aura of shadows for other keepers of secrets and demonettes and Slanesh things. This will also be an aura of making your opponent worse at Battle Shock, making you better at Battle Shock, which is lovely, and I love when that comes into effect. But it's not too impactful, I will say. Where this is nice is if you do want to take like a thematic centralized army around 1 or 2 gods, and you don't necessarily want to take Be'lakor because he's kind of ass, you don't have to.
Poor Be'lakor.
But he got his points decreased. That helps. That helps. But largely speaking, this is a great quality of life upgrade that will help us really see, deep striking demons all over the place. But yeah, basically, as you can see here, it's Bloodthirster and Scarbrand get the shadows, Rodriguez and Greyling can get the shadows, and that's kind of the essence of that rule across the table. That and some points decreases are pretty much all demons got, but along with new missions and new playstyles and new metagame, demons are looking much better than they were.
Yeah, and this is another quality of life change. It's not like a massive power boost directly, but they get some points decreases, and it feels like you can play a bit more diverse internally.
I know as someone who didn't like running Be'lakor, this change dramatically actually helps my game plan, which is awesome.
Yeah, and you run a variety of the bigger the bigger
I
models.
run Fate Weaver, I run Great and Clean
Lord
ones.
of Change.
I got Zinch units and Nurgle units to go buff with those units. I like that.
Yeah, internal synergy. All right, so Dark Angels, they're one of the armies that had a lower win rate overall. Basically, you'd basically take Azrael and Darkshroud and put it in Ironstorm, and that's your Dark Angels list. And now two of their detachments got some buffs here. So Unforgiven Task Force, their Grim Resolve detachment rule allows you in your command phase to pick an Adeptus starter unit from your army till the start of your next command phase, +1 to the OC characteristic of models in that unit. So you get some OC manipulation there. It's a quality of life upgrade. And Marines overall are relatively low OC. So on some of the new layouts, especially layout 7, this type of change is a big deal for protecting your objectives or contesting your opponents. And then the Inner Circle Task Force, what does it change? So Vowed Target Detachment rule, you get a variety of things. Honestly, I'm not super familiar with what Inner Circle Task Force did besides put durable models on the moon. So let's just read it out. You're going to either do defensive footing, select one objective marker you control. Till the start of your next movement phase, that objective marker is your vowed objective marker, or you aggressively push and you select one or more objectives you don't control. Okay, so it's giving you more flexibility of what types of objectives you can pick. Either the one that's under your control already to really just solidify it, or you go after ones that you haven't and get a little more aggressive. So it lets you play a little bit differently, and then each time a Deathwing unit from your army makes an attack that targets a unit within range of it, these vowed objectives, you get the +1 to wound. So their +1 to wound benefit already existed. This just gives you more flexibility to use it in different ways.
So basically, at the start of your movement phase, you're going to pick an objective, and you're going to be like, I get +1 to wound when I'm doing battle upon those objectives, which is great. That's just a good rule.
Yeah, +1 to wound, because they also have a variety of ways to get rerolls in combat. And they also got some buffs here to Deathwing Knight melee weapons. Previously, they were AP 1, and the power weapon was damage 1. Now, the Mace of Absolution gains anti-monster and vehicle 4+, and a second AP. And then the power weapon goes to 2 damage.
This is really nice as well, because it's only strength 6, so being able to wound monsters and vehicles on 4s, not 5s and 6s, is a huge change for them as well.
It's massive, and you're going to see them very soon. John has been painting them up, and guess what? These guys are really good.
We actually have a game releasing tomorrow, which we just recorded, which is these new Dark Angels showing off against the brand new and improved Custodes as well. So it's a whole new game in terms of what's good, what's bad. And Dark Angels and Custodes, 2 of the previously weaker factions on the tier list, are looking a lot better, I will say.
Inner Circle Companions, something you haven't seen before. They also get a nice upgrade here with the sweep profile gaining an extra attack and them going to AP2 as well. This is a huge deal. AP1 isn't particularly amazing into Armor of Contempt, which exists in a lot of places. AP2, though, perfectly fine.
That's a great
and these units hit really hard in that detachment with the +1 to wound access. Or can they access the +1 to wound? I don't know if they're Deathwing or not. But anyway, John plays them and they slammed. Yeah, no, I saw them and I was like, wow, he had fight first on them with the Judiciar.
Despite Dark Angels being one of the lower win rate factions in the tier list on our channel, John somehow manages to win most of his games with it. So perhaps they are quite good actually with these changes. We shall see.
They have some really solid data sheets. Deathwing Knight's really good. Azrael, amazing. Uses the Hellblasters with them too. So yeah, good stuff there.
Other good stuff is A. Inglizos with a $2 super chat. What's up, Alex? Thanks so much. This is one of our Art of War coaches, which you can check out on our website. Good to see some Chaos factions getting some love. It is good to see.
Alex, where's the AdMech hype, man?
No, get out of here. There's Chaos faction love hype. Appreciate you, Alex. And then Adam Griffey with a $5 super chat. Excited for the Tyranny changes. Synaptic Nexus looks like it could have even more fun. It definitely is. So,
I know John spent a lot of time in that Tyranid state of the faction talking about how he gets to go back to Synaptic Nexus and loves it.
Yeah, we are definitely going to cover the Tyranny changes, but they are pretty massive.
All right, so Death Guard, they get 2 small qualifiers here. One is that their upgrade to the detachment rule, which does all their amazing things. It does interact with characteristics and modifies them, so this matters for things that ignore mods to characteristics.
Yeah, which I think is fair. But,
and then the Biologus.
This is a change from previously, where you can only grenade one time with the dude.
I thought they reworded it. Once per battle round, you can target 1 unit from your army with this ability with the grenade strat for 0 CP. So now they can't. Then now there's no doubling. Right?
Yeah, so it used to be you could throw grenades 4 times in 1 turn. Then they made it you could throw grenades 2 times in 1 turn. And now you can throw grenades 1 time in a turn, but for free. Joey Fangaz with a $2 super chat. CP reduce, help Farsight. It's Retaliation Cadre, RIP Tank Shop.
I'm surprised you knew Retaliation Cadre. It's pretty impressive.
I can read.
No, but he said Ret Cadre. But you added the retaliation.
I am a master of Tau. I am a warrior of Crude. I know Tau as well as you do. It's a fact.
Thanks so much, Joey. So it does help Farsight be a bit more flexible, but at the same time, I think with the commander points decreases, it's still probably better to get the extra weapons than go for Farsight. But yeah, he's definitely won't be tank shocking anymore. That's for sure.
Thanks so much, Joey. And then Alex Inglesias with another $2 super chat. DWCs, I'm hyped for Admic, but also Snakes.
Oh, he loves his Tyranids as well.
Trigons and Molochs looking good.
Yeah, they got some additional keywords and some detachments. So we've got a Death Watch here, which
massive changes, best faction in the game. Death Watch got some love.
They keep the nerf to bolt weapons. Drukhari also keep their buffs from the previous update. GSC, nothing here.
Yeah.
And then Grey Knights. So
really no changes on those factions. Sorry, folks. I don't know why they neglect the Death Watch, but they does.
Nemesis Dread Knight and the Dread Knight chassis keep their weapon buffs. They're going to go up in points, but the Librarian, and you're going to see this for the for Doombolt in Thousand Suns, it can't target a lone op unless it's actually within 12. So
kind of similar to just like in line with the idea of the strats here, like you don't want to be shooting 18 inches at lone ops who can't be shot at 12 with these fake guns like Vortex of Doom. Just make it consistent. I like that.
All right, and then here we go with the Imperial Knights. So they keep the previous changes that they got, but they gain that super heavy walker ability that we talked about during Chaos Knights.
So they're
and
able to walk over ruins well.
Way bigger change here because obviously it buffs Titanic Knights, and this is the faction that runs Titanic Knights.
Yeah, this Imperial Knights as a list also just run the big knights, and they don't have access to a move through wall strat like Chaos Knights do. So this just matters so much more for them.
Yeah, it's going to be a big deal, and we're going to see how Mr. Brian Jones takes advantage of it.
I don't know if this was the case before, but Trophy Claim and Valiant Last Stand Stratagem are both 2
No,
CP
they since the beginning of the edition, they were increased.
You can see how much I know Knights. Alex and Glazes with another $2 super chat. Can't wait to annoy John with the snakes list again. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
John hasn't played the snakes. I want to see it. All right, so Leagues of Votann, they keep the same nerfs, or not buffs that they had previously, which is they get extra judgment tokens at the start, and that's that. Necrons, the one change they receive here directly is to Hypercrypt. You cannot 3.1 away the Catan, which is the only real monster that you would ever be taking.
R.I.P.
So I was not an abuser of this, but
some people were.
Some people were.
And that 3-inch away Catan is a very real backfield problem.
Yeah, and now it's not.
You don't want the Nightbringer behind you.
Nope, now he will be walking in front of you.
Orcs got a variety of nerfs. They got hit fairly hard. To summarize them, basically, in the Mob Mentality Detachment rule, this is for your Green Tide. Units of Orc Boys only have a 6+ invulnerable save instead of a 5+. They'll get a 5+ if your unit contains 10 or more models. So basically your 20 mins will have your 5+ just like before. There's no more re-rolling ones. That whole segment is just gone. And if you're damaged and depleted, you're not just rocking a 5 up all the time. This makes WOG matter more because you actually get the benefit of the 5 pinball no matter what your unit size is. And it also just makes your survivability across the board a lot less.
Yep, so the stat check nature of the Green Tide of 120 plus boys, quite a bit less powerful. In addition, their strat, which was you get +1 for each battle round that it is. So like turn 4, you get +4 to a charge. That is instead, you get +1 to a charge roll, and if your unit contains 10 or more, you re-roll the charge as well.
This is
a lot less powerful.
Substantially weaker. Like, not only is it for the obvious reasons of like +4 to charge on turn 4 with a jump turn or whatever, it's also you can't go as deep and as far. And like there were times where a unit would be 10 inches away and it's just turn 3 and it's a 7. That's still a re-rollable 9, which is like a lot worse.
Yep. So the consistency, this definitely hurts a lot of those weird boy plays late game where you just make easy charges onto your opponent's objective. And then the Go Get 'em strat, which is their Blood Surge move. Yeah. Now, instead of just guaranteed flat 6, if you're the larger unit, you can instead re-roll the d6 to determine how far. So it's only ever d6, but you get to re-roll it.
From a planning perspective as the opponent, you kind of already are assuming your opponent is going to roll well as the orc player. So like I will still stand 7.1 inches away from the orcs when I shoot them. Because I don't want them to get lucky and roll the 6. But at the same time, it does mean that if I find myself like fighting over objective and I'm only 5 inches away or 6 inches away and I can't really get 7 away, it's not just I'm guaranteed screwed, which is nice. Yeah. And as the orc player, you have a lot less reliability on your plays.
Then in terms of Bully Boys, the change here is directly to Mega Nubs, which go from a 4-up Phenopane in the WA to a 5-up, which is a massive difference. And they also are going to get a points increase.
Yeah,
they probably didn't need a second.
Between the points increases and this rule, I think the Bully Boys are no longer the dumb, derpy Custodes army that they were. They are now just like a decent way to play orcs, not even a broken way to play orcs. Like 5 Phenopane instead of 4-up is the point where you actually do take casualties. And points increases will go a long way to really knock this detachment down a peg as well.
Yeah, I don't expect to see the swarm of 18 Mega Nobs very much after this.
No. Space
All right.
Marine's got a bunch of changes, it looks
They
like.
did, mostly to the Iron Storm, because the Iron Storm was just a really silly detachment.
And
frankly.
Space Wolves, they got love too.
They did get some love. So Iron Storm was the shooty detachment where you had a variety of powerful aura abilities. 2 of those auras, the one which was lethal hits and the one that was advance and shoot, fall back and shoot, are now command phase pick a unit, which is a huge nerf, especially the lethal one, because that one you basically would overwatch. You would do all sorts of damage to your opponent at every instance with most of your army.
Absurd amounts of damage coming out of them.
And then the Mercy is Weakness strat, where you can get the crit 5s, is 2 CP instead of 1. These are big changes. Now, Iron Storm is still going to shoot very hard. It's just going to be they have, less ways to do it. And then there was increases to like the Storm Raven and maybe one other thing. So a couple ways to play the Iron Storm are not quite as powerful as previously.
I believe it's actually the Lancer and the Reaper, which were 2 tanks the Iron Storm builds typically did take, and then the Storm Raven and the Redeemer also have gone up. So basically all of the best like shooting platforms that Space Marines have access to all went up in cost, along with this detachment taking specific targeted nerfs. I think Iron Storm is still competitive, but it's definitely knocked down a peg in terms of how crazy it can be.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's a big revival of Gladius among those type of players.
Yeah, I know John and Jack have been talking a lot about repulsors as a new alt vehicle because they have a great rule, got cheaper, which we'll cover, and have that larger transport size.
They can fit the Eradicator brick with Bolter Discipline now.
Okay, so then we got Space Wolves.
You want me to do it?
You just played against the Space Wolves.
Yeah, I
Tell
did
us
just
about
play
it.
against Champions of Russ for the first time in like 6 months.
I think longer. It might be all year.
It might be. No, it was probably like 8 months. I played against it with my AdMech Codex. I know that. I was the last one to play against Champions of Russ, all right? Tells you a lot. So they basically had 4 abilities. Your characters have to achieve them in some weird ways, doing certain things. And they were all extremely hard to proc, so much so that maybe you would get one turn 3, and then it would be active turns 4 and 5, or you'd probably proc it turn 4. You get it for 1 battle round. It's basically a useless army rule. It has like abilities that you want, but it's too hard to activate. Now you start with by picking 1. You just can't pick the objective control one. So you can pick 3 of the 4, one of 3 out of 4 of them, and all of a sudden you're like, cool, I'm just going to start with the sustained on my army. Just army starts with sustained, which is what Jack did. And it also gives you the second half of a stratagem, which is advance and charge. So
That seems really good.
Starting with that, it seemed a lot more powerful than it was.
Starting the game with access to an advance and charge strat just completely changes your threat ranges and how the way your opponent interacts with you from the get-go, which already has cascading benefits. And then on top of that, Sustain Hits 1 is functionally +1 to hit. Your Space Wolf army just hits on 2s and melee is a great rule.
Yeah. So this upgrade makes Champions Rush actually competitive with, say, the Gladius or some of the other Stormlands, some of the ways you were seeing Space Wolves played. Is it going to be better than those? We'll have to see, but we're at least experimenting with it now and thinking about it.
Yeah.
Which is a nice quality of life upgrade. All right, 1,000 Suns.
No, you skipped one, Siegs. You skipped the most important one. Go up. Tau Empire, none.
Cool.
We have to cover that.
They get some points decreases, but no changes to their rules, which is not surprising.
We can't forget our fish friends. But 1,000 Suns. Now, this is an army that everyone was promising me would be destroyed. And I don't know what that was based on because I just don't think that's true. They took some minor nerfs, but I think largely they've come out kind of scot-free.
Yeah, they took nerfs to things that were just egregiously silly, and they had a lot of those things, but they're still very good. And they're the faction that benefits the most from the indirect fire change because they have a bunch of rubrics that are not in rhinos on the table that are hiding behind walls. They don't want efficient indirect fire, and they've been doing really well recently, and I expect that to continue. So take it away, Mr. Nick.
So we got some changes here. Basically, the Cabal the Sorcerer's army rules changed so that you cannot select the same 1,000 Sun Cycler model to do multiple Cabals. This is not something that comes up often, but it does mean that you can't do something like move a Demon Prince forward or whatever, have him Doombolt something, and then move away with that same Demon Prince. You can only choose to do one Cabalistic ritual. Another change here, and probably the largest, is Twist of Fate, which was the remove armor saves ability, is now you select one of your 1,000 Suns units, or rather, you select one of your opponent's units, and every time a model from your unit or your army makes an attack against that unit, it's now an additional 2 AP against it. So things like a Land Raider Redeemer in cover with Armor of Contempt that has a functionally 0+ armor save, instead of Twist of Fate being functionally -7 to your armor save, well, your 0 up is back to 2s and like nothing's changed. A lot of units that have invuls will take their 3 up to an invul.
Not my. I was gonna say the land fort, Nick. The land fort, baby. I don't just auto lose
You
to
don't just
Thousand
auto
Suns.
lose the land fort. That's true. No, I mean Tyranids with no armor saves on their monsters, land forts, land raiders, storm ravens. There's a slew of vehicles and just models in general that are now playable. Because giving your Thousand Suns army AP2 is a lot different than giving your Thousand Suns army AP7. it's just very different. I don't know what to tell you. Doombolt basically has the change that forces it to not kill lone ops outside of 12 inches, kind of similar to Vortex of Doom, which I think is perfectly good for quality of life. Thousand Suns don't need to auto kill everything all the time. Temporal Surge, which is the move again, just means you can no longer triple move something. All right. I play Eldar. I play a lot of armies that like to move. Thousand Suns triple moving is absolute nonsense garbage, and I'm so glad it's gone. Things just shouldn't triple move in this game. And then you can triple move the disc guy, see through the disc guy. Magnus has indirect fire. Just get it out of here. I love it. I love it.
They do get that nerf as well, which is the indirect fire. You can only hit on 4s unmodified.
That's true. So Thousand Suns do take a game-wide nerf a little bit.
Somebody's asking about that. That's in the rules update.
Yes. So that's a game-wide nerf that applies to Thousand Suns. They took a little bit of lumps in multiple areas, but these are largely just like the most broken of the mechanics that they had. No longer.
The Exalted Sorcerer's ability was also nutty and is worse now.
Yeah, so basically in your shooting phase, after this model is shot, if you've hit someone with your Arcane Fire, that unit is pinned and then subtracts 2 from its move and 2 from its charge rolls, which is still a fantastic roll.
It used to be on anything and advance rolls too. So now it's worse for sure, but
Right.
you might see it. You might have one.
Now
Exalted.
it no longer affects monsters or vehicles, which is nice.
Yeah, you might not see 3 of these anymore, but they did go down in points.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that is Thousand Suns.
You know what I'm really shocked about?
Yeah,
I really thought Lord of the Forbidden Lore was going to get nerfed, but I guess it just didn't.
I think that because they did you can't target in the same phase, or is it the same turn or same phase?
Same. Oh, they all use at the same time. Same
rule
turn.
for this rule this turn.
Mhm.
Yeah, probably because they did that. They were like, let's just see. But if Thousand Suns dominate, I expect that to get changed because it is kind of egregious as an enhancement, even though it went up in points last time.
Yeah.
All right, we have a $10 super chat from Mr. Morgan Card. Thank you so much, Morgan. Why do you get saves against T-Suns now? Keep killing it, guys. It's a big deal for, like, Votan. The matchup was horrendous. It was easily the worst matchup. Now it is certainly 1,000 times more playable because of that change specifically.
Yeah, appreciate your super chat, Morgan. Why do you get saves? Because this game doesn't need a world with AP7 bolters.
Yes. Turning off armors, like the game is designed around you getting an armor save and manipulating it in some way. With rules, you just don't get it.
Speaking of getting a bunch of rules buffs, let's talk about Tyranids. Tyranids have changed. So they've got some love and some hate through the game changes. And just to cover some of the game changes that aren't great for Tyranids is like Spore Mines are OC0 and they can't do actions because of that. So things like the Biovore creates a Spore Mine, the Spore Mine gets engaged and or deploy homers for you. That's not a thing. It's just no longer a part of the game.
You sit there for behind enemy lines and you being able to do both with one free unit was silly. Now they can't do any actions. So you have to have your lone ups or other things trying to do them. It's a big change to their scoring.
Here's what Tyranids got. In addition to your normal synapse functionality, each time a model in a unit makes a melee attack, add 1 to the strength, as long as it's in synapse range. So all your monsters who are woefully at strength 9 with their big scything talents now are just strength 10, assuming they're in synapse, which is not that hard. Your gaunts and things go up a little bit to strength 4, strength 5. That can be quite nice. +1 strength in melee is just a good rule. But it doesn't stop there. Basically, every time your opponent takes a battle shock test on the Shadows of the Warp rule, if they're within 6 inches of a synapse creature, subtract 1 from that test as well.
So it's not just the Neurotyrant. So they don't have to take a Neurotyrant.
Or it'll stack with the Neurotyrant, and I don't know about you, Siegs, but -2 to your battle shock, -3 if you're in your Death Leaper. That's the point where you just start failing.
Don't worry, Nick. The thing here is that I play all the terrible leadership armies, so it's going to be a problem.
It's going to be a problem. And I know John's favorite tactics, and I see a lot of great Tyranids doing this, is waiting for a key command phase to pop the Shadows of the Warp. And then you fail your tests right at the start of your turn, right before you want to use all your strats, right before you hold all the objectives, and you can't. And
Right before you want to have your Cabal points.
right after I moved my Flying Hive Tyrant, or the Parasited Mortex, who is now also a Synapse creature, right up in your face to give you an additional -1. I got my Nerve Tyrant in the back for an additional -1. And, oh, Shadows in the Warp. You're -2. Get screwed.
Yeah. The funny thing is, like, leadership can't be modified past a 9+, but these are modifiers to, they have modifiers to leadership and then to battle shock tests. And those are two
Yes.
separate things.
Two separate things right there. So then we've got the Untrammeled Ferocity stratagem, which I believe is in the
This is Crusher Stampede.
Crusher Stampede. Yes.
Yep.
Okay, these are both Crusher Stampede things. Basically, you're going to add 2 to the OC of Tyrannid monsters. That's their detachment rule. So instead of just +1 to hit and +1 to wound when it's below half strength, you're going to get +2 OC just all the time. That really, really is good for Tyrannid monsters.
Yep.
Bonus OC is awesome.
This is the detachment you basically very rarely ever see, so it needed some sort of additional way
I
to play.
played against this recently. It's actually not that
Really?
bad.
Where did you play against it?
At our Tampa tournament that we went to.
Oh,
I was actually quite impressed. I think this detachment is a little bit of a sleeper, and the fact that it's getting some buffs here is really gonna make it maybe move to the forefront of Tyrannid tactics. Now, it's still an army made of monsters, so you are gonna run into new problems like getting move blocked, and oops, they took all las cannons, but one problem at a time here. Extra OC on your monsters, and then Untrammeled Ferocity. Each time a model unit makes a normal move, advance, or fall back, it can move through models and terrain features that are 4 inches in height when doing so. But similar to the Knights, you can't land within engagement range of enemies. And if you're moving over a terrain feature that is more than 4 inches in height, you gotta take a fake battle shock test and roll a 2+ to knock a battle shocked.
yep. So interesting change here. We'll have to see how that plays out. Big change to the Hive Tyrant, though, which
This
is
is
that
the thing that's just crazy.
it gave them assault, and now his aura is also lethal.
As if the Hive Tyrant on foot was not already good enough, but assault and lethal hits.
He does get worse with his free stratting ability, which was previously you would use Invasion Fleet and get 5 of Pain, 5 of Pain, which was very strong.
Yeah.
So that is a bit different, but like lethal hits on everything, my gosh.
It's only ranged weapons, but Tyranids do
Yeah.
most of their damage they're shooting. And then on top of
John
that,
does.
John
loves guns.
Yeah, he's a combat player, he says. On top of that, it also gives you some flexibility in your detachment because Invasion Fleet, their detachment rules pick sustained hits or lethal hits depending on your opponent, basically. You could now choose sustained and lethal pretty much all the time, or you can use this as an opportunity to try out things like Crusher Stampede or Synaptic Nexus and not stress so much about not having those lethal hits.
Yeah, Synaptic Nexus doesn't have access to the lethals against monsters' vehicles. Now you just have your Hive Tyrant do it.
Yeah.
Perfectly awesome. Neurolictor gains Synapse, which once again, Neurolictor's hanging out in the middle of the table,
Causing
potentially
battle shock
giving you
tests,
that
yeah.
-1 is very annoying. Then you have Zoanthropes can now be led by the Neuro Tyrant, which opens up a variety of shenanigans with the different keywords in that unit. Then you have Shadows of the Warp is put on the Parasite and the Broodlord, which I don't know how they didn't have it, but whatever. they gain Synapse. And then the Maulock, Raveners, and Trigon all gain Vanguard Invader, which was one of the other detachments you didn't see too often, but now it gets a lot more play, and that's a detachment that can go back in reserve and has a lot of, it's like the tricky detachment.
It's the tricky detachment. So, and it works really nicely on those kinds of units. I like the Moloch Raveners and Trigons, the snake people, all getting that keyword. I think it's synergized
Alex is going to
nicely.
be experimenting with it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Then the Exocrine goes from strength 8 to strength 9.
Why? I don't know. As if Exocrines weren't good enough. They were in every single list ×3.
Grey Knight Dread Knight's in shambles right now.
But, like, enough whining apparently works, folks. Just get John to whine a lot and GW will listen, I guess.
So this is a big update. If you weren't already running 2 to 3 of them, do it. Please.
Do it. Like, what are we talking?
It's by far the best. Like, it's 135. Like, it's insanely cheap for
For
you
their
get.
points per stat line, the Exocrine might be one of the best units in the game.
It's very good.
Yeah.
And this helps them punch up into the medium vehicles, and then the lethal on the Hive Tyrant lets them punch up into other things. And then the Terran effects, I believe it was, I honestly can't even say. Was it 2d6 damage?
It was 2d6 damage before, and now it's d6 plus 6 damage, which is so much more consistent.
way more
Your
consistent.
floor, if you roll a 1 on the d6, is what your average used to be. Instead of, oops, my Rupture Cannon, which I worked very hard to hit you, wound you, and get you to fail a save with my 2-shot gun. I rolled a 3 on damage. What am I even doing here? No. Now it's like you're between 7 and 12. Like, you can one-shot tanks credibly with that.
Yep. So big update to Tyranids here. This is a lot of quality life, and there's a lot of power in terms of, you're like, battle shock tests don't really matter. They really matter on this if you play this army properly.
Yeah,
they matter a lot.
I think Tyranids have really come up a tier in this detachment. It's all through subtle ways, but like something like +1 strength on your execrans, lethal hits on your army, -1 leadership on your opponent's army for that Shadow's turn. All of that stuff adds up in very subtle Tyranid ways to translate to a better game plan.
Yep. And then we have World Leaders keep the same nerfs that they had previously, but they're going to get some points decreases.
Yeah.
So let's head over to the MFM.
Yeah. So this is where all those points changes.
Oh, baby.
Here it is. They
Whoa.
said Sisters None. Sisters None is what they wrote in the balanced data slate. Okay, folks. So if you were thinking that Sisters were the God tier, S tier, best thing that happened since Sliced Bread Codex,
They were going to be.
they were going to be, but maybe not so much anymore. I don't know if any of you have tried writing Sisters lists with the new points compared to the old points, but I will tell you, it's no slap on the wrist 200. It's no token 100. Your list go up anywhere between 300 and 450 points, depending on what models you're running. Now, you could definitely find units that haven't really gone up. Things like Dominions and a variety of random characters haven't really gone up. But the good units mostly have all gone up. So this is to reflect the fact that not only have your detachments skyrocketed in power, which ultimately elevates your data sheets, but your data sheets in a lot of places have also skyrocketed in power. So in some places, Sisters are just reimagined. In some places, this is just a nerf. And in some places, this is necessary. So to just kind of go through it, Astrid Thurger and Agatha Dolan at 85, this was a nerf compared to all the points changes you're seeing are compared to the back of the book codex points, not to what the Minotaur and Field Manual and your app currently said as of yesterday. So just take that with a grain of salt. But they now join a unit and give it Dev Wounds. So 85, I feel like, is very appropriate for how much power this unit brings to a unit. Dev Wounds with Miracle Dice is a stupid mechanic. Archiflagellants, technically down from where they were yesterday, up from what they cost in the Codex. Don't let it confuse you. 150 for 10, 45 for 3. I think this is very reasonable for what the profile currently is with 5 Feel and Pain and no Twin Links, but access to lots of buffs. 10 Battle Sisters at 115, I'm a little sad about. I would have said just stayed at 100. There's no reason for this in my mind, but slaps on the wrist be necessary when your stigma is that you are broken. Good job, Internet. Canonist,
We got them, boys.
Canonist with a jump pack up from 50 in the back of the book to 75. I think that's fine. 50 for this data sheet would have just been ludicrously insane. Slam 3 on the table no matter what. Castigator up to 150 from 140. I think this is totally fine. Castigator's a great tank. It got better in Bringers of Flame. Just run this thing anyway. It's good. Sacrosan's paying for that +1 attack and those new detachment rules. They've gone from 2 attacks to 3 attacks, but they've gone to 75 and 150 instead of 60 and 120. That's a sizable points increase. I don't really love it, but I do think the quality that Sacrosan's bring to your army is actually quite decent. Demonifuge at 85, kind of whatever, is side grade from what it was. Exorcist at 190. I think it was 190 in the current Minotaur and Field Manual, or previous Minotaur and Field Manual. Not sure. Little pricey, but with multiple Miracle Dice, this thing can slam. Hospitaller currently costs 50. Imagifier up to 65, which is painful, but its new datasheet ability gives a unit 2+ armor and a 4+ invulnerable save. So I do, in fact, get it. The thing slams on defense. Immolator stayed at 115. That, in fact, did not go up. And then we've got the Minutestorm Priest, who is a new datasheet. They combine the Missionary and the Preacher into a Priest. He costs 50. Perfectly fine. Joins your Archiflagellants, gets +1 to wound. No issues there. Mortifiers, and I'll just skip it now to Penitents, also gone up. Mortifiers 70 and 140, Penitent Engine 75 and 150. That's painful. I mean, that's 20 points a model on a low model count unit. It's definitely not the auto take free skirmisher that it was. You still could see them, and especially in Penitent Host, they add a lot. Vol's up to 160. She's crazy. That's fine. Pensions, like we just had talked about, went up. The Volgons also went up, not indicated in red here, but believe me, they are up. 210 for the Volgons is not cheap. For your defensive profile, for 210 is just not acceptable. I think this unit, it might be... I wasn't a fan of it before in the index when most people ran it, so I don't want to be biased here. I think you'll still see it. In Bringers of Flame, it's still awesome. In a lot of detachments, you can take it. It's still awesome. +1 to hit is their new datasheet rule. +1 to wound is their new datasheet rule against monsters and vehicles. And that's just super powerful, but you are not increasing your defense, and you are now paying like 70 points a model for functionally a Terminator, and that is just a lot. Repentia also got almost a double in cost. They went from 55 and 110 to 90 and 180. Their offense hasn't actually improved that much on the baseline stats. They're 2 attacks each, strain 6, AP 2 damage with reroll hits, reroll wounds. But when you couple that with all the banana lands buffs you can do in Penitent Hosts, I can really get behind this kind of change. Retributors at 125, slight increase in cost to reflect a better datasheet ability. I think that's totally reasonable. Celestine went up 15, which makes me very sad because I loved her. I think she went up 25, actually. She used to be 140, which makes me very sad, but I get it because she was very good. Seraphim, 85 and 170. I think this is reasonable in a vacuum, but I get horrifically offended every time I look at a jump pack intercessor that somehow costs less than a Seraphim, is stronger, is tougher, has another wound. All I have instead of some hand flamers and fire and fade. I'm not seeing it, folks. Triumph of St. Catherine. This is the big red bottom line item here. Triumph of St. Catherine up to 190, 50 points on this big lady. I mean, she's amazing, right? Like, her new aura is +2 move, +1 advance, +1 charge. This is absolute banana lands in terms of buffing, and she gives you an automatic 6 every turn, so she really is a lot better than she used to be, but also she's a lot more expensive. Zephyr up to 190 and 180. I also hate this one. This is a 50% increase in cost. Zephyr used to be 60 and 120. Now they're 90 and 180. So largely what this means is we are no longer the trash army that we used to be, full of like 25 units. We don't have our 2-man Crusaders. Our 60-point Zephyr are 90. Like, across the board, we're just paying more for our things, but our things are better. Our things are also a lot faster with Triumph. So I have a whole State of the Faction coming out today, tomorrow, with focusing on what to do with these new points, how to build lists, how to evaluate the detachments with all this stuff. But largely speaking, I think your mentality is shifting from Sisters, from a garbage kind of everything is slightly better than it should be, we have a lot of stuff kind of army, to quality. Quality is our main emphasis here, and then like keeping things alive, preserving resources, and using them to deal hammer strikes into your opponent at targeted opportunities. So it's a new world for Sisters, folks. And if you want to explore your new Sisters, check out the War Room with our 50% off discount, AOW Nexus, because I have a like 1 hour long solo monologue explaining Sisters to you.
And later today, you're actually putting them on the table against my Tau on stream at 1 p.m. Eastern on this channel.
I am. I'm going to bring the heat, bring the bringers of flame right upon Siegs, showing off all these new points, what the new list will look like, how to explore the new world, and hopefully it should be a really great game. So stay tuned for 1 p.m. Eastern time on this channel, folks.
Definitely. All right, next up we have Custodies, which mostly get points decreases to some of their Forge World units, which you rarely see. So a variety of them go down. The biggest impact here, at least in Jack's opinion, is the Venatari Custodians, which go down significantly. They have the ability to make rapid ingress free, which is quite strong on such fast-moving models, and they hit pretty hard. So these guys are going to be seen, and if you want to see them, there's going to be a Custodians versus Dark Angels game coming out tomorrow that shows off multiple Venatari units with this new update in the Shield host.
Being able to rapid ingress, because they specifically call it out multiple times in a turn, is pretty banana land.
Yeah, so expect to see these guys. The other decreases are nice, and you might end up seeing some of those units, but Venatari are the big winners here. And thank you so much to Mr. John McCardell for gifting 20 Art of War memberships. Thank you so much. We very much appreciate your continued support. And if you were lucky to be gifted a sub, make sure you click the accept button from YouTube and get access to our Discord community, as well as all the bronze tier, different content pieces.
John McCardell in the chat. Hype 20 Art of War 40K memberships, folks. If you're a brand new Art of War 40K member, congratulations and welcome to the War Room. Please make sure you access that Discord, accept whatever you need to accept, and access that content. It is beautiful and it is for you.
Definitely.
And we've got Dragons with a £5 super chat. Going to enjoy seeing poor Hammer's faces that only Forge World units got changes for Custodians. Yeah, despite only the Forge World units getting changes for the most part, I still think these changes have really helped Custodians, and this, along with Crit 5s up there, and just the game-wide changes, I think generally helped this army a lot elevate from where it was to where it will be.
Yeah, maybe you'll see the Telemon like 215 for a relatively durable tank, or like Dreadnought chassis. It's pretty darn decent. So maybe the Palace will be a skirmisher. We'll have to see. But Venatari seem like the big winners here. All right, then we have Adeptus Mechanicus, which also get quite a bit of red here, but they also got a lot better rules.
All right, Siegs, lay it on me.
So all the All the Archaeopters go up in points. Just make sure that flyers aren't broken. No surprise there. I don't really expect to see them too often. Belisarius' Call stays at 150. I think that's pretty reasonable for where he's at. But the interesting ones, so Corpuscari and Fulgurites, they go up a bit. Corpuscari 70 for 5 and Fulgurite 75 for 5. These guys are significantly better in the Datasom Conclave because they get the army-wide rule plus the detachment rule, whether you want to go for the shooting or the combat buffs, which I think is a much bigger benefit overall. And John McCardell with another 20 gifted subs.
What a hero of the Imperium. Thank you so much, John McCardell. If you are one of the 40 members, John McCardell has just gifted a sub. Make sure you check out the Discord and our content. John McCardell, thank you so much.
John, you are a hero, and I hope you're excited about the World Eaters. I imagine that you are. And maybe you have the Votank, because those Jaegers are going to be quite tasty. All right, so the Fulgurites, Corpuscari, I think you're going to see them definitely in Datasom. You might see them in some of the other detachments. Like Corpuscari popping out in Datasom with a AP2, reroll wounds from a transport that hits their target. It's pretty darn tasty. Iron Striders go up to 70 points per model with their additional power of having more shots up front. They don't have twin linked anymore, so I think they're going to be very good in the Hunter cohort because you get access to stealth and you can get the Cantic Thrallnet, so you get both doctrines. Both Conqueror and Protector. So I think you'll see them there. You might see with the Bring It Down changes just 2-mans, but I think with the Thrallnet, 3-mans are pretty viable. Robots go up slightly, but they're still cheaper than they were at the beginning of the edition. And in Cybernetica, you will, like the detachment is designed to play them. They are good in that detachment, and they can be move blocked, but they are much better than they were in that detachment now with the army rule. Then Cataphront Breachers, they go up 30 points, so they're pretty pricey. They're still very glass candy, but for getting a guaranteed, if you're in Conqueror, +1 AP, that AP3 is a huge difference. They really struggle against 2-up Armor of Contempt. Now they can actually do damage into those units. And in Datasom, you can go to AP4 on them, which is a big deal. Honor Guard at 160, it is much better. Its guns are much better. I'm excited to play it and put it on the table. Sterilizers go up a bit, but man, they love the Conqueror Protocol buff. Being able to kind of guarantee get extra AP on them is very nice. Sulfur Hounds go up 5 points, whatever. They like the AP bonus, but still it's a bunch of strain 3. That's not ideal. Sicarans go up 15 points, but they're way better than they were before. Infiltrators stayed the same, so there's some competition between the two of them. Rangers go up 5, Vanguard go up 10. Vanguard going, this is the first time Rangers have been cheaper than Vanguard, which should have been from the start. Vanguard are way better, but going up 10 points, their battle line buff generates a lot more power, so not too surprising there. Scorpius Disintegrator goes up 5, Dune Rider goes up 5. The Dragoons go up 10 for the one model unit, and then this is a 50. They did a weird thing here where it doesn't scale 100%. The 2-man and the 3-mans are 50 points a model instead of 55, but the 1-man's more expensive, and then Dragoons go up 10 points per model, which I think they're really good in the Hunter cohort and expect to see them. Engine Seer goes up 15 because the vehicles are better and giving them healing, and 5 of Pain is pretty darn good. Manipulus goes up 10, and then the Veiled Hunter, which redeploys happen before you know who's going first instead of after, so they've reduced the cost on this thing. Overall, these changes, if you were running a very Iron Strider, Dragoon, Skitarii heavy list, you might go up 250 to 300 points, but you get a lot more quality. But for a lot of the other AdMech lists, they go up about 150 points, maybe a little higher if you're really spamming Breachers. And that's perfectly reasonable for the buffs that you get. So very excited about AdMech. I think they're going to be in a great spot, and it's a very different army feel now.
Yeah, I think
don't have as
AdMech
much
and
stuff.
Sisters change the most in the points functions.
Yeah, exactly. You're not going to have as much stuff like Sisters, but your units do more things, which is exactly where you want armies to be.
Yeah, I like the general making things cheaper or more expensive and worse type of fixing instead of just raising the rest of the floor. Of the
You mean
game
more
up.
expensive and better, right?
More expensive and better, yes. As opposed to just putting more stuff, more data sheets on the table and just bloating the game out with power creep and stuff.
Nobody wants to pay 2,000 points for an AdMech army.
But we do want to hit these super chats real quick.
Let's do it.
So we've got John McCardell, $20 super chat. Stupid
so
question, but changes to strats, keywords, etc. get updated in the data cards, units, details, etc. in the app, or does it stay the same as release date? I know the points changes, but curious on other changes.
It's not a dumb question. In fact, they do it. So they do it in the errata. So there's going to be a whole document that is the index cards that you'll see. If you click that, it has any sort of profile datasheet keyword changes. And then in addition, the app also updates to have the newest version of them. So all that should be updated in the app. I haven't checked if it's updated yet, but I assume it is. So check that out.
Yeah.
But they are doing a much better job on that.
The app getting updated is one of my favorite things about Warhammer stuff right now.
Yep.
And then we've got Zint25, who's been a member for 12 months. Thank you so much, Zint. The pendulum has swung between AdMech being the bearers of ancient superweapons and their identity as Space Skaven. My friends will love this buffs.
And they should. This is a very exciting time, finally, for AdMech. This is the best that they've been since 9th edition, and I'm really excited to play them. And like I said, there's the Game in the Worm against Space Souls, where I played the Datasom Conclave, and I'm going to be playing the Hunter cohort against John's Tyranids in the near future.
Awesome. So let's get
And
back.
the AdMech State of the Factions in the War.
There's so much content. There's so much content for every faction, folks. Like, get in the War Room, AOW Nexus, all caps, thewarroom.vhx.tv, link in the description. Just come. Just do it. Just do it.
All right, so we got Index Al Adari here. We've got a bunch of the different aspect champions.
Phoenix Lords.
Phoenix
Get
Lords.
out of here. I'm the Eldar guy.
Yeah,
All
go
right,
ahead.
So Ajerman's down to
Screw
115. Jane Zar's at 90. Karandras at 90. Magan Ra at 115. Those are some of your Phoenix Lords who went down. The Void Reaver's also down to 115. The Viper is down to 75, which I really like the Viper at 175.
Pulls ignores cover, right?
No, it gives you lethal. No, that gives you Norse cover.
Yeah,
Those-
yeah.
the
He's the
Shroud
Eldar
ones
guy.
are-
Get out of here.
Yeah. But you didn't just get off with a bunch of buffs. It wouldn't be the balanced data slate from Warhammer 40k if Eldar didn't get nerfed. Dark Reaper's going up to 85 for 5, and apparently you can take 10 models now, which you couldn't do before. So now
Really?
you can take 10 Dark Reapers for 170. That is brand new. Fire Dragons, 5 for 90, 10 for 180. Skyweavers, 105 and 210. Swooping Hawks, 85 and 170. Warp Spiders for their 5th nerf in a row, 125 and 250. And of Rain, 125. Oh, the Wraith Lord came down too. So basically, if you've been following competitive Warhammer, you may be familiar with the Eldar lists that are doing well, which have become almost entirely MSU, like 3 into 5 Hawks, 3 into 5 Spiders, 3 into 2 Skyweavers, 3 into 5 Dark Keepers. Like, take the good data sheet times 3. And most of the good data sheets in that list have just gone up 10 to 15 points across the board. And across all 15 of your data sheets, we're talking 150 to 225 points of nerfage. And then the things that got buffed are the units that you didn't see, which I love. I love that kind of interaction. So what Eldar lists will look like in the future, I don't know. Are Eldar still good? They're always broken. That's the answer.
Yeah, I mean, their particular, like, Yvrine brings in Scourges. Those went up as well. The 5-mans at least, and then your MSU Haywire and such, it's going up. So that specific archetype, but if you were running some of the other units, like I know Quinn is pretty excited about Striking Scorpions plus Karandras now. It's a lot cheaper, and may want to test out some of these Void Weavers.
I think
or
you
such.
generally have a real opportunity here to explore a different style of Elder List instead of just MSU. I mean, they've changed it from the Wraith Knights and Incarns and Avatars to Wraith Guard to the MSU, and now we're going to end up exploring, I think, some Hero Hammer here because all of your characters went down for the most part.
Yvrine went up because she was accessing Scourges and Dark Eldar units.
Yeah, she was a common way to play Eldari was to just access Yidnari competitively and just get like 15 Scourges into your Elder list. So you'll notice later when we get to Drukhari that Scourges went up and so did Yvrine because she was your access point.
And then Shadow Specters, which were also very commonly seen, also went up again.
Another one
Fire
is-
and Fade unit that shoots pretty decent. It was also 3x5 in every list.
So if you're looking at Shadow Specters, Warp Spiders, and Swooping Hawks as the big 3, the 9 data sheets that you just take, 3 of each one, you're looking at a 10-point increase on every single unit for 90 points up just on your mainstay units, which is not insignificant. That basically just takes one squad out right off the bat.
Yeah, I think Eldar will lose like a squad and a half.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 squads.
Which I think is good. I think it's a good place for where Eldar should be.
Yep.
Agents of the Imperium did not change at all.
All right, so Astromola's Harm, they're one of the armies that took the like game-wide changes, the indirect fire nerf, the change to free stratagems, the change to the reinforcement strat. All of that hurts guard overall, but they got a better detachment roll, and then they get some points decreases here. So Cassigan go back down 10 points, the Basilisk, the Manicore go down a bit, Armored Sentinels go down, the Rogodorn goes down like 20 points. That's going to be a hot ticket item. Expect to see that alongside some of these Leman Russes. The Death Strike goes down, Field Ordnance goes down a bit. So, and then I don't think anything Forge World, yeah. So overall, they are really trying to push guard towards more. You play in the middle of the table, and you play with tanks.
And I think that's a great style for guard. I know when the edition began, everyone was like triple mana core, triple basilisk, nobody moves an inch, everybody gets lethal hits. This is the most boring way to play Astral Militarum, in my opinion. Having more of an emphasis on your vehicles like Lehman Russes and Kazukin doing mobile things. Sentinels coming down 65, even 3 for 195, I think is a quite reasonable durability per price point. Kind of opposite the problem of Paragon, Warsuits, and Sisters. I think Guard is much more of a let's box in the middle army, which is interesting because they're not a combat army. They just are durable, they're cheap, and they're cost effective. And I think that's a great way to play Guard as opposed to just sitting in the back and showing people endlessly.
And we got a Mithril Blade here with a $10 super chat asking that exact question. So thanks so much for the super chat. I do think that, so it is a direct nerf to the one archetype of Guard that existed in the tournament scene, which was I revive Kazukin and my Scout Sentinels. I hit you with indirect fire the whole game, and the middle of the board is just glommed up with Bulgrin. That style is just straight up worse. Mm-hmm. However, in the last update, they decreased the cost of a lot of the different Lehman Russ chassis. Now the Rogel Dorn goes down, and you get a better detachment rule for direct fire. You just have to pivot to a different Guard style. Whether that's worse than the previous style, we'll have to see on the table. But I think John was already excited about running all his Lehman Russes. He's got all the turrets he's working on. So we will see how Guard performs.
I think Guard is actually net better. I mean, it is different. You're not just blowing people up in your deployment zone like you used to be. But you probably end up with more stuff. And you end up with more mission playability. And for those of you who have not gotten the chance to play Pariah Nexus, we played quite a few games available in the War Room and on our YouTube video channel. And what I found is having access to Battle Line, having access to a lot of good action people, like just being able to play good fundamental Warhammer scoring is a really, really important thing these days because the actions are harder and they're more frequent, which means just being able to...
And they're worth less.
And they're worth less, right? So like doing more actions, getting less rewarded for them, incentivizes you to just kind of skip that part of the game. But if you skip that part of the game, you're only going to cap your score at 50 primary. So you really need to just bite the bullet and figure out a way to do the actions. And Guard can do that really, really well. And I think that ultimately will give them a leg up, which didn't exist before.
Yeah, I mean, like Catachans in Chimeras is like dirt cheap for scoring.
Yeah. John and I actually have a deep dive breakdown on the different missions and how each approach list building for it, also available in the Worm. So if you're one of those brand new 40 members that John McCardell just gifted, or if you're thinking about subbing, now is a better time than ever.
Yeah, definitely do it. All right, so Black Templars get a small increase here to their Reaper and Valiant gladiators. Nothing else changes there.
Screw your Iron Storm.
Yeah, pretty much. Black Templars, Iron Storm taking a hit. Index Blood Angels remain exactly the same. They got some really good units here. They got some increases in the last update, but they're one of the better armies in the game.
Demons!
Chaos Demons.
All right, we got some love, which I did not expect because we were like right at that 50% win rate, but we got love. No.
You've been above 50%, my man.
Hey, get out of here. Not only did our big monsters get the Locust ability to functionally give them Shadows of the Warp, but we got points drops. Bellacore at 325, still don't like him, but I like him more. Bloodthirster at 305, still don't like him, but I like him more. I do think there's a world where if you're that kind of player, you could run like 2 or 3 Bloodthirsters and Bellacore and smash people. It's a bit of a stat check. It's not for me, but it is decent. Demon Prince of Chaos came down. Demon Prince with Wings came down. Neither of those get me that excited. Demonettes at 100. I kind of like Demonettes at 100. That is actually quite cheap. Fate Skimmer at 95. I love my Chariot spam. It doesn't do that much, but 95 for that profile is not a bad price point. Fiends 105 and 210. All right, Fiends started the edition at 150. And I was like, flip the table, rage quit, just sell all the Fiends. You know, we're angry about this. And they have lived in the shelf, literally in our closet, for the entirety of 10th edition because of it. And I was joking and I was memeing that they would have to make Fiends 105 for me to even consider playing them. Then they went down to 135. Then they went down to 120. And lo and behold, we are here. We are at 105 for 3, 210 for 6. And you know what, Steve? I'm going to get Fiends on the table.
Get them on the table.
I'm going to get them on the table. We've got Nurglings, which are 40, 70, and 105, largely the same. Technically cheaper for a larger unit. Plague Drones, every single time we get a balance update, Plague Drones come down 10 points, and every single time Quentin and I have the same conversation about what about Plague Drones? And the answer is always they still suck. So, RIP Plague Drones.
You think at 110 still not it?
I mean, it is a good price for like toughness 8, 5 wounds with the 5 of Benvol. but they literally have 0 offense. Like you scratch out their attacks profile and write the number 0 in there, and just do that for shooting and melee, and then that's the play drone data sheet. So for that reason, I'm out. Now we've got a skull cannon at 95. If you're gonna go down the route of chariots, big bases, and kind of play a different style of demons than what we have been traditionally been seeing, I think it's kind of more real than before, where you get 3 skull cannons at 95 each, a bunch of secret chariots at like stupid cost, and then you get fate skimmers for cheap, and all of a sudden you got like 12 to 15 big weird Admech style ovular bases that just block board space, and your opponent can't stand places, and that is legitimately a strategy. And then we've got the Soul Grinder coming down to 180, who is an amazingly statted unit who just still has trouble walking.
His base is gigantic.
He doesn't play with his base, technically. The base is for Age of Sigmar, but depending on your TO, you're going to have to put a base on there. Really depends who you ask. Demons, folks, they got some love in the places that sucked, and it helped. It helped. The bad units got worse, and the good units did not get worse. The bad units got better, and the good units did not get worse, and we love to see that.
Yeah, so I think just continuing the increase, the internal diversity of demons is very good, because they have a lot of data sheets, and most of them I've never seen.
She's actually 400? I just saw that.
No, they want her.
They want. I want her 450. I'm just not taking her, but
All right, Chaos Knights. This is the typical big knights for Chaos Knights go down.
Yeah,
so the Abominant, the Spoiler,
the
Acheron,
big knights come down, little knights stay the same, and you probably still run little knights.
One of their enhancements goes down slightly. So I think War Dog spam is still going to be really strong for them because the battle line buffs on some of the missions in the new tournament packet. But overall, I think if you wanted to run big knights, once again, you have a better rule to be able to walk through walls, and they're cheaper.
Yeah.
So,
I think Chaos Knights actually, are in a great spot, not for these points decreases or their detachment rule changes, but rather because of the meta game. I feel like the top of the game is coming down a little bit, which naturally helps Chaos Knights. And I think that the missions really lean in towards helping Chaos Knights because they really reward you if you are an army that naturally takes a lot of battle line. Chaos Knights take a lot of great battle line.
Yeah, really good battle line. Like Stalwarts is an amazing role for them to be able to shoot and do actions.
All the secret agendas are pretty available to Chaos Knights as well.
Yeah, bottom of the turn Chaos Knights will have a great time scoring a lot of them.
Yeah.
All right, so Chaos Space Marines.
The pain. It wounds me so, Seeks. Not only did we receive our probably necessary and not that bad War Talon nerf, but we received a lot of points, slaps on the wrist, which add up to some sadness. Accursed Cultist up 10 for 8 models and 20 for 16, which kind of makes sense when you consider that the Chaos Cult list, I will say that we were sleeping on, has been doing quite well out in the game lately. Just went 7-1 at ACO, and I had a game with it in the War Room where I ran John's Genestealer Cult right on over. Chaos Predator, Annihilator, and Destructor up to 140. Destructor 140 I can get behind. The Annihilator is truly terrible. Like God, that thing could be 120 and it's still not getting taken. I don't know why that's going up. Vindicator up to 185, fine. At 175, everyone decided Vindicators are broken and decided to put 2 in every single list. They're still casino cannons. I still don't like them, but depending on who you are and how good you are at rolling dice, they're awesome. Havocs at 135, I think is steep. They used to be 135, then they went down to 120. I really liked them at 120, and I really think they're a little overcosted at 135. So that is what it be. Legionnaires up back to 90 and back to 180 from 80. I think 80 was just so stupid cheap. I can't even be upset about this nerf, even though it's like 60 points straight to my base and my list design. Legionnaires are great at 90, and they were just stupid at 80. Raptors are kind of terrible, and I'm really angry at them for not having grenades. So paying more for Raptors makes me sad.
That was a funny moment in the stream game. Nick learns no grenades on Raptors.
I literally deep struck them 3 inches away so I could throw a grenade and shoot. Oh, Siegs. So then we've got Venom Crawler up to 120. I love the Venom Crawler. Like, I feel like they looked at what lists I was running, took every data sheet I had, and just make it 10 points more per data sheet, which ultimately is the Eldar treatment, and I hate that, but fair is fair. See, some were very good. Warp Talons up to 135 and 270. So this is 5 points a model, 25 points for a 5-man, 50 points for a 10-man. The nerf on their data sheet ability is not really that impactful in my mind, but the points nerf is. I still think they'll see Warp Talons. I still think they're very good. Going up and down, putting people in the loop is still very strong. But man, 270 for a 10-man. The list with the 20 to 30 Warp Talons just won't have enough things in them, I don't think.
Yeah, most likely, which is good because that unit was silly.
That is silly, yeah.
All right, Dark Angels here. Deathwing Knights, they get that several bonuses, and specifically to their combat weapons. So they had gone down, continue going down. Now they're much better, and they go back up a little bit. But John just ran 15 of them, and my God, are they fantastic. And you're probably going to go back to seeing 15 Deathwing Knights in a lot of Dark Angels lists.
Yeah.
Dark Shroud goes up. It was used in a lot of Iron Storm lists. It's still usable, certainly at this point.
I'm just glad you can only take 15 Deathwing Knights. I think that is the saving grace here.
Yeah, 15. You're gonna see them. They're really good.
They're so good. And then the Dark Shroud, I believe, is also went up, which is good because that was like a quintessential debuffing unit in the Dark Angels Iron Storm variation.
Yep, it's still playable if you want to go that route. But you know,
I think there's better things you can do in Dark Angels, which are more on theme with our Terminators.
Very likely. Then we got Death Guard here, so they get some increases, mostly to the Foul Blight spawn and the Biologist Putrefier, so Grenades Man, as he's called. They both go up 10 points, which means that if you're running 3 and 3, your list goes up 60 points. However, there's some decreases here. Blightlord Terminators are like, 31 points a model, something crazy?
Yeah.
And
I
then
mean, they're so cheap now for what they are. Like T6, 2 up, 4 up. They still move slow, and they don't have great offense, but like at some point, if you're cheap enough, it's just okay.
having Terminator-sized bodies is strong. And
they'll
then
still kill most things.
The Blight Haulers are 90 points a model now. The Blight Bringer and the Plague Surgeon both go down as well.
The Blight Hauler at 90 is cheap enough where I actually consider it. Like it's still a vehicle with a multi-melt and a missile launcher. It gives contagion. It's a decent skirmisher.
Yeah, overall this is a net nerf for Death Guard with their 2 key characters going up. The Putrefier can only grenade once. For free.
Yeah.
And then they don't get any decrease on other stuff. And also they take the indirect fire nerf on their Plague Burst Crawlers, which are just going to be hitting on 4s now, even if you have more Terrian.
Yeah, there was a world where Plague Burst Crawlers hit on 2s, and now they just hit on 4s. I think overall the Death Guard list that we've been seeing Plague Marines backed by Plague Burst Crawlers and some skirmish stuff, that is like strictly worse because Plague Burst Crawlers got nerfed and the Plague Marine characters went up, but there might be room to innovate the list a little bit with Terminators and Blight Haulers maybe making an appearance.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Go ahead.
We got to talk about Zin's 25 Super Chat before we get into the illustrious changes of Death Watch. Nick, what do you think? Slam 3 War Dogs into CSM at this point? I don't like Vindies and Preds are getting more expensive than I want. I'm with you. Vindies I don't like either, and Preds are getting more expensive than I want. I think the War Dog like basic data sheet stock is higher than ever. The fact that they are battle line adds a lot of their utility to me. The fact that they can just add quality firepower that, you know, you're not super tied to being Chaos Space Marine specifically. I think that's a great way to explore your CSM list right now, Zint. Appreciate your super chat.
All right. Then we have Deathwatch over here. So their basic veterans go back down to their original points cost, which is nice because that's one of the mainstay units that you have. And then Captain Artemis, the Watchmaster, goes down. Watchmaster is very good. Usually you see 1 to 2 of him. And then the Captain Artemis you don't really see, but he's pretty cheap. Nothing for the kill teams you never see, like the Fortis kill team, the Spectrus,
perfectly fine faction.
Kill team Cassius, like you literally never see any of this. Why couldn't it go down 5-10 points, even just like basic? There should be green all over this.
I think the worst part about the Death Watch Index to me is the fact that they actually do make changes to it. Like it's not like it's purely neglected. It is just missed. They just consistently miss with it.
I think I think more can be done here to make this interesting. Honestly, kill teams should just get an extra rule and they can stay expensive. They shouldn't just keep getting cheaper, in my opinion. They should get an additional rule for being a kill team.
Yeah, at some point you're just paying stupid cheap Space Marines, but like it could just be elite Space Marines that have good rules that aren't broken, that are costed appropriately. And instead we're just not getting
for this handful of Deathwatch players who are out there running the Watchmaster plus Deathwatch veteran combos, like that got cheaper, so you're running them, probably 3 of them. But overall, not too much to talk about here.
Yeah.
Then we got Drukhari. So we have Grotesques going down. Quinn has been running 18 of them, and nobody's a bigger fan of this update. They go down 20 points for 6 of them, so his list goes down 60 points on that.
Ravagers also come down to 110, which I think is a great price point for that tank.
Yep, so good anti-tank there. Definitely helps the real space raid variant of Drukhari a lot.
Yeah.
And then Scourges, they go up for their 5 model unit, but the 10 model unit goes down.
This is real interesting. We have an orange.
The first time
change.
time we're seeing the orange change here, and that's really interesting. So I think the 10 model units you're still not going to see, but
The real thing here is 5 models get 4 heavy weapons. So 5 models, 4 lances, or 4 haywires, whatever. And then 10 models don't get you any more weapons. So the first 5
bodies.
first 5 cost 24 points a model, but then the next 5 cost 6 points a model.
Yeah.
No, I can't math. 60 points, 5 is 12 points a model, half the cost. We can do it. So like you said, I still don't think we're going to see too many 10s, but I love that they're not just doubling the cost for 5 idiots.
Yeah, and maybe there's a world where eventually you start seeing Scourges, if this goes down even a little further, where they're like objective contesters as well, because they have so many bodies and move blockers. Who knows? But probably not in Sky Splinter.
Yeah.
All right. Then we have GSC, which also get a bunch of like colors here, but I think a lot of it is similar to the current MFM or previous MFM.
This is all relative to the codex. Remember that. The codex points back in the back of the book. But with that said, GSC, rest in peace, my friends, might have been literally the worst army in the game with their previous Minotaur and Field Manual points and their current new codex. I am looking at this with a fresh set of eyes, and I am going to hope to God that my army is saved from the pits of abomination. Let's find out.
Abomination.
Aberrants, even though they're gray, have gone down substantially. 150 for 5, 300 for 10. This used to be 360 points for 10. So we got 60 points cheaper. We also got stat decreases. We're strength 7, AP 1, and 2 damage. So kind of the opposite design of AdMech, where they got better and costed more. These got worse and costed less. I still think 300 is like crazy expensive for Aberrants, but I will appreciate a 60-point decrease. Ridge Runners are the same. They cost 75 today. Acolyte hybrids with auto pistols and Acolyte hybrids with flamers are now 2 different points costs in the codex, which is interesting, instead of just being 1 flat points cost. So it's 70 and 140 and 75 and 150. So a little bit cheaper than what they cost today. I think that's good, especially the Saw Acolytes. That's the auto pistol version. Icon Ward is up to 60. I hate seeing red on Genestealer Cult. I feel like that's the worst direction we can see here. Jackals needed to come down. They did not. I'm very sad about it. Biophagus is still 50. Clamovis is still 50. Those are fine. Rock Grinder came down to 120. And while I still think it's overcosted, I appreciate they're trying. Metamorphs at 80 and 160 is totally fine. Truck is down to 85, which again I think is overcosted, but it is closer to in line with like the Rhino type vehicles of the world. At least it's not 90 or 100 or 110 where it started. Calomorph is up to 60, which I think is fine. It's only 5 points more than it is today, and the Calomorph is actually probably the best character you have access to. Jackal Alphys is the same at 60. Locust and Magus suck, but they are at least cheap. Nexus is up 10. I don't really know if he's worth it with the new way CP works and the new way his rules work. I had to really think on that one. Patriarch is still 85. Primus is still 90. And then Pure Strains are still 75 150. So like almost none of this changed, which is heartbreaking because I really needed to see like as much as Sisters went up, I wanted GSC to come down in almost a similar respect. And I feel like my list has ended up getting like 50 points back across the board instead of 500. And I'm a little sad about that missing digit.
We'll see, though. I mean, this will be the first time GSC are out in the wild with the new rules coming up.
I really hope I'm wrong, folks. I really
Ridge
hope
Runners are good.
They sure are 450 points of good unit. Yeah, Genestealer Cult friends, I have faith in the Four-Armed Emperor, but it needs to be rewarded.
Hey, you're going to put it on the table. We're going to find out. And,
we're going to keep putting it on the table. Like, Genestealer Cult has always been a figure out the nuance kind of army, so you need to put it on the table quite a lot of times to figure out the nuance. I just am sad about it. I'm just sad about it.
All right, Grey Knights here. So Crow takes a 15-point nerf. I don't know who Crow hurt specifically out there, but he didn't deserve it. I don't know where the Purifier Break is really tearing up the meta. It's a lot of points for a unit that only kills like
Genestealer Cult.
chaff. Yeah, it does tear up GSC. I mean, maybe the GSC player wrote that, but I don't think he really deserved 15-point increase. The Grandmaster and Nemesis Dread Knight and the Nemesis Dread Knight both go up 10 points per model. That's not surprising. Spamming 6 of them is all over
Why
the meta.
only 10 is my question. You know, like if you see a data sheet.
This is the second time they've gone up since then. So now
The semifinals of the most recent U.S. Open held by Games Workshop had 5 Dread Knights and 3 Land Raider Redeemers in it, and I really just feel like that shouldn't be an army list.
Well, it goes up a lot. So those units all go up. So that's 60 points for the 6 Dread Knight chassis. Then the Land Raider Redeemer goes up 25 points. So that's 75 points for 3 Land Raiders. If you want to try and run that, you're going up 135. So you got to cut something.
You're cutting something.
And there's nothing really that's cuttable. The Storm Raven is going to go up in Space Marines 220, another 20 points. So if you were running that, sad. The Crusader goes down. I still think that if you're really trying to run a Land Raider, the Redeemer is worth the extra premium over the Crusader. And ultimately what this means for Grey Knights is that you're cutting either a Dread Knight chassis or a vehicle chassis somewhere, and you're basically staying around the same. So you're going to have one less unit, effectively.
I like that the Terminator build is still totally intact, and I feel like people should just go back to that.
I play it. I play it. I love the Terminators. I think they're really high skill intensive and awesome. And also, Drago gets a big buff here because Dev wounds now transform into mortal wounds that don't spill over, but that's not really the big part here. It's that defensive mortal wound abilities, like 4 at Pain against mortals, is a huge buff now against Dev wound type armies. So Drago gets a bit of a buff here from an army, from a game-wide change.
Yeah.
Which is very nice. So
That's
his Terminator unit is quite durable against a lot of things.
Drago and 10 Terminators is a unit.
All right, Imperial Knights. They get some decreases here. The biggest one being to the Lancer, or the most impactful one being to the Lancer.
Right.
And potentially to Atropos. I know Brian is...
he's excited about both of those.
Yeah, he's been running the Lancer for a long time and loves that. Maybe he's been talking about double Lancer for a while. Maybe this gets him to potentially play that.
Yeah, and also the Paladin came down to 405, the Atropos 425, and a few of their enhancements have come down as well. Which this is nice, probably not that impactful in a vacuum, but you got to remember also not only is the game different, but you can just move over walls now. Like, Knights have fundamentally changed.
Yep, Mysterious Garden goes down a little bit. So, like, Knight armies usually have that weird amount of points at the end, so maybe this allows them to upgrade an assassin to like the Calidus, or
just get more
degrade a Calidus down and get more agents.
Yeah.
So maybe they get an extra cheap unit somewhere between this and the last update. Okay, Leagues of Votann, nothing changes here except for, where are they? I am blind here. They are Hernkin Jaegers are introduced. They're 80 points for the 10 models. You can't split them up with the Sagittar, but 80 points for an infiltrating unit that has a reactive move. Okay, finally Votann get a tricky unit.
Stuff.
And I was thinking like 90, around the same cost as Pathfinder. 80 points, just straight up automatic. You're probably gonna get 1 unit in minimum. Maybe you go for 2. If you're running the Sagittar heavy build, you probably go for 2 of them.
Yeah.
Maybe even more, honestly, and play super aggressive with them. But in my Landfort build, 1's certainly going in for sure. Like, that's a great points, price per point for the Jaegers. And I now have to paint them. I was waiting to see what the points cost was. 80 points, 100%.
Every time you say the word Jaeger, I just think of the drink Siegs.
These are the Jaegermeisters of Votann, okay?
They better be.
They're Meisters.
We're going to have a Liddy stream out there.
All right, Necrons.
Into the dumpster with this faction, right?
No.
Oh.
They get a 10-point increase to the Doomstalkers, so 30 point if you're running 3 of them in the Canoptic Court. And then Wraiths do go up significantly, so 15 points for 3, 30 for 6. So if you're running triple Doomstalker, 3 Wraith bricks, you're going up 90 points.
Yeah, compared to where we initially started.
Oh, sorry, not 90
build,
points, 120.
120. But compared to where we initially started that build, like, Doomstalkers are up from 120 to 145, and Wraiths are up from 220 to 250, and then the Technomancer is up a bunch as well.
He's still up 25.
Like, this army has actually been nerfed.
6-man Wraith unit with the Techno is 335, I believe.
I genuinely start to question if it's worth 335. Like, I know it's super durable.
It's not. It wasn't worth the previous points cost, in my opinion. I ran them because I just didn't want to paint other stuff, but now I will, because I think Wraiths just do so little damage.
Even with the reroll hits.
It's literally insane how little damage that they do. And they were a huge liability against things you don't typically see in the meta. Like World Eaters literally run through Wraiths.
Yeah, they're in essence a stat check, right? Like 6 Wraiths walk on the objective and they're like, you cannot possibly kill this. I have Feeling of Pain and I reanimate and I have Reactive Move and I have 12-inch Low Nop. And it's like, okay, you have 18-inch Low Nop.
Which is a huge nerf to them as well.
And some things can, in fact, kill them.
The reason why it's such a big nerf is usually you could position the unit such that with the 12-inch loan up, they had to get within 9 of one of the models to get most of the unit within 12, and then you'd reactive move back behind the wall and stuff. With 18 inches, they don't have to trigger that reactive move anymore.
That's true. That's true. So you can just shoot them comfortably at 18 away, no reactive move for you, and just get it to work.
And this unit could soak up damage, but there were certain armies in the game that were like 6 rates, no problem. Like Votan just eviscerates.
Well,
race
that's
units.
also part of the challenge, right? Like if you're gonna put 6 race on the objective in the midfield as your strategy, if you're playing against world eaters or certain factions of orcs or things like that, like you're not gonna live. You're just still going to die. Like Thousand Suns apparently still don't care.
So I'm going to be experimenting with an entirely wraithless version of Canoptic Court and seeing how it performs, but I might go back to Awakened Dynasty or some of the other detachments. We'll have to see, but I'm at least going to put it on the table and see how a wraithless version acts.
Got a couple super chats from the squad out here. We got Red Room with the £2 super chat.
Thank
Are
you.
John and Jack doing the core rules updates? They sure are.
They will be doing core rules updates as well as the tournament companion for Pariah Nexus, going through all the new layouts and the mission combos.
That's right. And then we got Smash Shalaxi with the $10 super chat. Red ahead for Tau changes, broadside point changes are nice, and Crisis Suits changes too. Thank you for your super chat. We are going to get to Tau very shortly.
We will get to Tau.
into all that.
All decreases are much beloved. But I'm very excited about Tau. So Necrons, I think definitely Awakened Dynasty benefits a lot from this update. Canoptic Court will still probably be playable in my mind, but not race spam. I think that list loses a lot. All right, then we have Orcs here. So Green Tide and Bully Boys got some amount of nerfs from the Dataslate. Snickrock goes up 10 points. Meganobs go up a lot. They were what, 50 points a model?
No, they are now. They were now 40 points a model. They were 50 points a model. Or sorry, they
30.
were 30 points a model. Yeah.
So they go up 10 points per model.
So that's just a lot. I mean, 240 for 6 Meganobs is it's probably what it should be, but it's also like they don't have that many attacks. The 5 people pain doesn't make them unkillable. They have no access to fall back and do things. There is counterplay to Meganobs, and now that there's less army behind the Meganobs, I really think 18 Willy Boys is just like not the list.
Yeah.
Pain Boys also going up a little bit, and the Weird Boy going up are like direct nerfs to the Green Tide builds who just wanted to sham Pain Boys into the orc units to give them 5 of
Luckily,
pain.
boys don't go up for them, but
I think all the actual rules nerfs to the boys detachment I think have calmed it down. I'd say orcs are like back in line. Like they are about as good as they were when their index version. I think they have a lot of good internal diversity and there's balanced codex, and I think their external balance is now kind of reasonable as well.
Yeah, I think it's basically they were running 2 stat check lists, and if you couldn't deal with either of them, you just got run over. Those 2 are significantly less powerful than they were. They're not.
With that said, I actually think that there's a lot of room for exploration and an improvement in the mech Dreadwog detachment. And the reason I'm saying this is because the new Bring It Down changes. Basically, you get 2 points per every 10 wounds you get 2 points for killing a vehicle unit, not a vehicle. And then if it has 15 or more total wounds, you get an extra 2 points. And if it has 20 or more total wounds, you'll get an extra 2 points on top of that. But something like a bunch of Killicans is hard to actually kill the entire unit. And if you kill 5 out of 6 Killicans, even though you've killed 30 wounds worth of Killican, you don't actually score any Bring It Down points. You have to kill the unit. So I think maybe this is incorrect thought, as it has been tested, but there's a large opportunity for you to run like vehicle spam orcs and just get back to that kind of mindset. Where you're not just auto giving up Bring It Down. Secondaries in general are more challenging. The fixed life is not what it used to be. And I think you'll actually see some good success there. It's an underexplored archetype in lieu of those Green Tides and Bully Boys detachments that came out of the gate super strong and swinging. But since those are taking a step back, I really think you could see some room for innovation here.
Yeah, I think orcs are going to go back to the drawing board in a more significant way, because also their playstyle of getting up on primary in a massive way is a lot harder to do now in Pariah Nexus.
Yeah. And your opponent can come back really hard. If you do get a big lead as an aggressive army, like orcs can be, especially the Wog tribe, they try to dominate board presence and then get tabled, but they have too much of a lead. If your opponent takes a secret agenda and you actually do get pretty close to the table, it's likely they will achieve that secret agenda and just get a 40 on primary anyway.
Yeah, so I think orcs will go back to the drawing board, but they at least have a good fundamental baseline for rules.
I would be surprised to say orcs fall off the cliff entirely, but they definitely got hit.
Orcs also have a lot of loyal players. All right, Codex Space Marines. So the Reaper and the Valiant go up a bit. The Redeemer takes the same nerf as the Grey Knight one, up 25. That's a sizable chunk. It is now like You will see the repulsor, but it has some competition for tank that holds my precious marine bodies.
I think
And then,
as the opponent of a Redeemer, I feel like 285 is still fine.
yeah, 285 is still fine. It's the case if you wanted to run multiple. Now
Yeah.
you're punished a bit more heavily for doing so. Crusader goes down, but that's not too relevant. The repulsor at 180, it's not quite as durable as the Land Raider, but it's significantly cheaper. It's 105 points cheaper, and it holds the Gladius Bolter Discipline brick. So there's some play there to
Let's
think about.
also
Also, they
remember-
have that great rule to, if you're declared as a
yeah.
charge target, you get back in the
You just
transport.
react and move right back into your transport. But I'm thinking more like if we're talking about game-wide changes, Thousand Suns no longer just straight stripping your armor saves. It is a real buff to the things like Land Raiders.
It definitely is a big old buff to that. Ironstorm gains some points decreases on the 2 aura abilities that became
that
pick
got
a command
nerfed,
phase.
yeah.
Yep. And then the Storm Raven goes up another 20.
I hate
Sorry,
the Storm
Kit.
Raven. I really hate the Storm Raven.
Yeah, I played against it and easily killed it, so I don't care. But most people don't play armies that easily kill it.
Yeah, flyers are dumb.
I'm like, oh, you have -1 damage, armor, contempt, smoke? No.
we get it.
Ignore
You play
mods.
broken factions.
Ignore
We get
mods,
it.
bro.
We get it. This ain't about you.
Silent King.
It's about Space Wolves. Space Wolves and their Thunderwolf Calvin, their Wolfen who have gone up. Good. Wolf Jail's a silly concept. And on
It had
top
the
of
highest
that,
win rate in the game. It was insane.
somehow. I still, none of us really understand why Wolves
It's
are
because
doing
it's
so well,
aggregate
but
numbers, you know.
It's, yeah, I mean,
It's-
the 6 Thunderwolves at 200, 10 Wolfen at 180. The impact rules changes to the way Champions of Rust works actually makes me quite like Champions of Rust, and I feel like you may start to see a more balanced style Wolf army instead of just 18 Thunderwolves literally surrounding your faction.
Yeah.
As you can't kill them fast enough.
Things like Fenrisian wolves go down in value, but then on the other hand, Bjorn goes up way in value because his Vect is extremely good in a combat army.
And as we saw in the Warhammer game, which you can catch right now with a promo code AOW Nexus, Murderfang has gone on an absolute rampage, which I'm sure Jack will go on about later.
Oh yeah, 100%. So there's a lot of interesting things with Space Wolves. These increases, you know, are something, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to be
I think
absolutely
another
massive.
consideration to the let's not do wolf spam, wolf jail on Space Wolves is basically same logic line. Secret agendas exist. You can put someone in jail, dominate primary, get yourself up to 50 really quick, and then keep them at 5/5/5 for like the first 3 turns. But then if your plan is to like lose all your Space Wolves throughout the game doing this jail plan, and they just get 40 points on primary anyway because they've achieved their secret agenda and held their baseline home field objective the whole game, that's not a win condition anymore. So I think you will have to adapt your strategy.
Yeah, because secondaries are harder to score overall.
Definitely.
All right, Tau. So broadsides had gone up significantly with the last update, but Tetras had gone away, and they were one of the biggest beneficiaries of Tetras. So, and then rail sides were really punished for missile sides being good in Monka. So the broadsides go back to 90. So 2-man rail sides, I think, are once again competitive. They compete with the Hammerhead, Skyray, etc. And then the 3-man is 300. So you pay a premium if you want to go for the 3-model unit, which benefits the most from strats. But it's down 30 points from where it was. Still 30 points more than where it started. But I think that's pretty reasonable for the missile side unit. You can run it in Monka and not feel too bad. And then I think rail sides are going to fit really nicely into Kaoyun. So some nice internal diversity there. Then crisis suits and the commanders, which commanders used to have 12 cyclic shots. They have way less firepower now and had stayed the same points cost, which I think was just it was too much for them. They go down, and then the crisis units go down 20 each, which I think makes them a lot more interesting. This really helps Retaliation Cadre a lot, but a commander plus a Sunforge unit is only 50 to 65 points more than a Riptide, but does a lot more damage. Now, from close range versus farther range, but I think there's real competition between Riptide, Crisis Suit unit, broadsides, and previously it was you start with the Riptides, and then you think about adding tanks. And now there's much more competition between all the different units here. But this is a really big buff for our Retaliation Cadre, which buffs the crisis suits more than any of the other detachments.
I'm horrified by the prospect of cheap as chips crisis suits. Like horrified.
They're not cheap as chips. They're still,
110 for 3 Starside suits, 130, 150. This is cheap as chip seats.
it's not cheap as chips. Like they have no this is the only unit that has defense.
Yeah.
This is the only one with
defense.
4-up invuln. They don't have any.
The defense is your opponent has been
they're
shot 55
T5 with
times.
3-up save.
Talk to my Volgons, okay? They cost 210. But
I'll
here's
take your
where I'm
Volgons
coming
for the
from.
Star Scythes. I'll trade you.
I'll trade you. Well, deal done.
Games Workshop, write it out, baby.
I want the star side. Siegs wants the Volgons. We'll call it good there.
Done.
But this army stuff, battle suits in general, is also one that really loves the new Bring It Down changes, because that was a big challenge to how your opponent just gets a free 20 on secondaries, and now they just don't. It's really easy to play denial on Bring It Down.
Like, you might score well on it, but then your other secondary is not easy because recover assets isn't fixed anymore, and teleport homers for the centers too. Like, you ain't getting your guaranteed 35 anymore.
No, you really not.
And then Tau is one of the biggest beneficiaries of secret missions and the comeback mechanic of Pry Nexus and closer games, because Tau often fall behind on primary at some point and come back. They love this. The Pry Nexus is going to be pretty nice for Tau.
I do think the external rules changes, along with these point changes, have really skyrocketed Tau into a dominating position.
Now, these were not dominant units. They're competing now with Riptides and Hammerheads and some of the other vehicles that were more popular. So it's not like these just go straight into the list. I'm going to try them out today. I'm playing multiple Broadside units and Crisis units against Nick. Just to see how they're doing.
We're actually trying out the brand new Sisters with all their nerf points values into this brand new Tau army with all its buff points values, and we're going to see where it shakes out. I know if we had played this game maybe last week, it probably would have led to a Sisters victory, but we shall see if the game, how the balanced Dataslate has.
Yep, that's going to be 1 p.m. Eastern time, and I'm excited because, like I said, I'm gonna really put these units to the test and see if they perform, and if I don't like them, I will go back to Riptides, begrudgingly, but I want them to do well.
Yeah. No, I think Tau's in a great spot.
Hammerhead goes up 15, which is perfectly reasonable. It's more expensive than an Exocrine now, but it is better than an Exocrine.
I think that's part of the problem of the Exocrine's also stupid.
Yes. No, that's what I'm saying is like it should be more expensive, but 135 is kind of silly for that. Then the Strike Team goes down to 75. I still think the Crew Carnivores are a better option than picking them, but now you aren't like completely punished for taking Strike Teams.
Yeah. Inception 418 with a $5 super chat. Can Farsight 3-inch deep strike for 1 CP now, or can he not target his own unit while off the table?
So he should be able to. He should be able to use his ability in reserve thanks to the rules commentary. And that is certainly awesome. However, I think a Cold Star with the extra volume of fire you bring is still better than what he brings. Yeah. Personally. But he has more play in that specific scenario.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your super chat, Inception 81418.
Thanks so much.
1,000 Suns. So the points changes largely don't do much. They're not that impactful, but the Exalted Horse Run disc goes down to 105. The Mutilate Vortex Beast down to 150. That was a good data sheet at 165. And at 150, I think you just take it. I think you just take 2. These are really, really good.
They're the thing that 1,000 Suns have that wants to stand an objective and soak up enemy firepower, draw out things.
You put the Mutilith on the Vortex Beast while the rest of your army cowers behind the Magnus Wall, and then your opponent has to do something about the Mutilith Vortex Beast, and then you can interact with all of the units.
You need real guns to kill it.
Yeah, you're not killing a Mutilith Vortex Beast with no 5 Seraphim. You need an army over the map. Like, these things are tough. And then Terminators went down, which probably still don't get much play competitively at the moment, but perhaps the meta shaking around could lead to it.
Yeah, so interesting here. I think Mutilith is a big winner here.
I think despite like a few slap on the wrist bounce Dataslate nerfs, but notably the minus armor save getting taken away from 1,000, despite that, I think they are largely in the same place as before because of these points drops. Like it's side grades on the offense and it's side grades on the points drops, and we've ended up net neutral.
I think the biggest thing is that their combo of turn-off armor saves plus indirect fire is worse now because they hit on 4s and they don't just guarantee kill some of the big expensive things out there.
That's true. That's true. So there are a few combos which they may not have access to. But
so like the most egregious things.
Stuff, yeah. The triple move is gone too.
Yep. All right. So then Tyranids here. So Biovores and the Mucilid Spores, the 0 OC stuff generating goes down, which is perfectly reasonable. Neurolictor goes up 5 more points. Keeps going up. It gains synapse, and it has a better rule from the army rule. So,
I think 90 is the point where Neurolictor is actually quite expensive, but you do gain synapse and an extra minus on shadows, which is quite powerful.
And it's such a good primary manipulator as well. Like you're still going to see, maybe you don't see all 3 anymore, but you see 2.
1 to 2, yeah.
Then Ripper Swarms, they're more expensive for the 1 model, so they go up from 20 to 25, but then the 3 model, which I don't know if you're really going to take, is 50 points. The Turvagon goes down a bit.
That helps the Endless Swarm list quite a bit.
Yeah, although they take a punishment from that stratagem change.
What stratagem?
Once per game, the regen.
Oh, yeah, that's true. No more infinite gargoyles. That's good. We don't need infinite gargoyles.
But overall, like Excrement stays the same. It's all upside for everything else. Everything else is just enjoying the new rules more powerfully.
So like small nerfs to nids in the form of Spore Mines being OC0 being worse, but largely nids are way better than before.
I don't know what the Neuro Node is, but it went down slightly, I assume.
Good for the Neuro Node.
All right, and then World Eaters here. So 8-bound and Exalted 8-bound go down 5 points per model.
Why?
Exalted
Why did
8-bound
this
go.
happen?
It's because you look at the European World
forget the European
World Eaters list. They don't run the Exalted 8-bound that much.
What are they running?
They're running Corn Berserkers and Rhinos. Guys, Exalted 8-bound, please. Anthony, Jack, Exalted 8-bound. It is the best data sheet besides Angron. Like, clearly.
I don't know.
Run
I don't
it.
know what they were thinking. I don't know why this happened.
15 to 18. Go.
World Leaders are great. World Leaders got better. I hate it.
Nick's demons hate the World Eaters.
Literally, why? Why? I got it too. Why?
It'll be interesting, though, because the mission changes change the way the game's played. And once again, World Eaters are an army that could throw away their army at one point, and they open up that comeback mechanism in Pry Nexus. So it'll be interesting to see. But if you're not taking Exalted 8-bounds, I just cannot emphasize how good they are.
I don't know that this has such an impactful change on World Leaders list design.
Not
because
ultimately.
I feel like you don't have like enough data sheets to really tinker and toy with
I think
it.
you might be able to get an extra spawn unit at best.
Spawn got worse. Oh, no, they didn't. They're still OC1. They didn't get changed. My
they're
spawn
not
got
OC0.
worse. RIP.
Get wrecked.
But $20 super chat from John McCardell. Yes! Yes, thank
Corn's
you
number,
so
baby.
much. All right, John McCardell with the World Eaters hype in the chat. We appreciate you so much and all your support for the channel, John McCardell. In fact, all of you watchers, we support each and every one of you, and thank you for all of your support for this channel. We couldn't do it without you.
Yeah, you're all amazing. Thank you so much for hanging out. And we're quickly going to go through just the faction FAQs for our relevant factions, and John and Jack can cover theirs. But like I said, coming up next is going to be Mr. John and Jack. They're going to do the tournament companion and the rules changes. So we mentioned like the indirect, the mortal change for Dev Wounds. They're going to go through all of that for you. So Admech, the relevant change here is that the Marshal doesn't double strats anymore. He just picks a unit once per battle to be unbattle shocked. Way less powerful, but you actually use it in a game. And then the Onager gets to move over things that are 4 inches or less with its giant space. And the Scorpius Dune Rider gains Firing Deck, Nick. Firing Deck 2, but still Firing Deck. Okay, they acknowledge that it has a Firing Deck. It's just only 2 guys.
That's all you need.
And then the Veiled Hunter is changed, so like all redeploys are now before you know who's going first, which is a big nerf to that.
That's good. That's good. I like that as a consistent thing.
All right. Tau, their biggest thing is that the same thing, the redeploy for the Crew Trail Scraper is before you know who's going first, which is a big nerf for this detachment. But the Riptide Nova Charge is also at the start of the activation and no longer more amorphously in the shooting phase sometime. So that's those changes. And then Necron's here. The Silent King gets a big quality of life upgrade in that his Miniers had counted as characters for whatever reason because they didn't split up the different models. And now only he's a character.
So that's way better.
So they don't give up
Assassinate.
fixed Assassinate
Yeah,
anymore.
that's nice.
Huge quality of life upgrade there. This is Sisters, which I don't know if any of this is
I don't
relevant.
think anything got changed for Sisters. Although, actually, no, one thing did. This is definitely noteworthy from the Codex, so they'll probably have it all supposedly needed to work. Suffering and Sacrifice no longer says your entire unit has to swing into whatever I'm using the strat on, regardless of its position. It now says each time an enemy model with an engage range of your selected unit has to fight there. So basically, if I have 5 Seraphim charge the tail end of a 20 long orc unit, not all 20 orcs will have to fight my 5 Seraphim. Only the ones that are actually in engagement range will have to fight my 5 Seraphim, which is how it should be, but also a lot worse than what it says.
Yes. Then you have your Chaos Space Marines. I don't know if any of this is terribly relevant.
So let's take a look. Scroll up a tiny bit.
Eager for Vengeance enhancement.
I have no idea what that does. Each time the battle's unit makes attack on your focus of hatred, if the bear's unit fell back this turn, I'd one of the hit rolls. So I think it's one of those Veterans of the Long War enhancements, which largely doesn't help. Dark Apostle and Damn models only for the enhancement that lets them scout. It lets them scout. That's good. And then Abaddon.
Oh, Abaddon can't shoot into the air anymore. I'm pretty sure that's in the rules commentary.
Oh, he can't shoot
He
the
can't
air?
shoot the
Oh,
air.
That's a
He
little
has to
worse.
be able
But John Jack will cover that.
Yep.
And then something about the Rhino's Havoc Launcher.
I don't think that matters.
No, you can take a Havoc Launcher. Okay.
GSC.
GSC. Oh, there's a lot of words. Roll d6 on a 3+. You can place a cult ambush marker anywhere on the battlefield, more than 9 inches away. And then your one-shot weapons considered as not having been shot. I think that just clarifies how that works.
Yeah.
The Nexus ability, if it allows you to once per battle round, one model from your army can use this ability when it's targeted with a strat. It's so to reduce the strat by 1, so it's just modifying it for the new world. And then the Alchemist Familiar.
You're equipped
I'm
with
equipped
it.
with the Alchemist Familiar. Okay.
Cool.
So nothing changed there. All right.
So overall, big update here to the game. So many things have changed. The balance update is a lot more thorough than the previous.
It's a real
one.
shakeup. I feel like this is 10.5 edition.
Yeah, it feels like with the combination of all the new missions, the new rulings that they've made, the new points, and also the data slate, that we're in a whole brave new world, which is really exciting because there's going to be a lot of bigger events coming up in the summer. And I'm excited to see what the meta is going to shape up to be.
Me too. I think there's a lot of changes, a lot of room for innovation. This is dramatically different from the game of Warhammer where you're playing just as late as yesterday. The points are different, the rules are different, the missions are different, the fundamental mechanics of the game are different, which Sean and Jack are about to cover live on this YouTube channel. So we're going to take a little bit of a break, but don't go anywhere, folks, because we got more streams coming, covering those core rules changes. And then, what's the point of talking about the rules if we're not going to play the rules?
This feels like a really thorough examination of all the things that were just too strong or just didn't fit with 10th edition.
That's right.
From the beginning.
So we're going to be playing a game at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, Tau versus Sisters. Don't go anywhere. We got another stream coming after this where we cover the rules changes. We got another stream after that where we're playing a game of Warhammer. We got plenty of streams in the War Room, which you can access right now with promo code AOWNexus, all caps, for 50% off as your discount code when you go to checkout.
Yep, the warroom.vhx.tv.
You can check out the link below. It is in the description. Gets you full access to all of our content, and you'll get access to our amazing Discord server. While you're down there, like